All right. Welcome back, everyone, to the Knots versus Bitcoin Core series. I am your host, Tone Vase, and co-host Jimmy Song. For this episode, there aren't going to be any other guests. I really wanted to do a 10-part series, wanted to end on an X, but we ended up with one too many guests. Uh, Jimmy and I might disagree on who the extra guest could have been skipped, but in any case, this will be our final episode together. Probably, you never know what happens in the future. Don't hold us to this, and this is where I want to present all of my views. I would love to get Jimmy's views on how he sees things going forward as well. I want to redo my presentation, which Jimmy didn't see, but I want Jimmy to challenge my presentation. I want to present my view, and I want someone like Jimmy, who I respect very much, for his knowledge of the Bitcoin network, for his knowledge of development, to challenge some of my views, and you guys get to decide whether what I think about BIP110 or not, or where we're heading in the future, is something completely crazy or something reasonable. Jimmy, you want to say a few words?
Well, it's been a long series. We thought it was going to be like a few weeks. It's been more like 4 months, 5 months now. So, it's come to an end. I think we're ending probably in a good spot, hopefully. And yeah, I think people kind of know where you are on this issue. I think people know kind of where I am on this issue. So this should be a fun one to sort of end it, because I think a lot of people are watching this thing just sort of, and I can kind of feel a lot of frustration online from both sides, right? It's like, oh, they're not saying this or they're not saying that, and it's like, yeah, I mean, that's a good thing. I think that kind of goes to show that it's we're hitting the right buttons in many ways. So
I'm getting a lot of hate online. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of hate online, which is, I'm not new there. Oh, by the way, let me make something else clear before people say that, oh, Tone lied. This is the last show with Jimmy Song and myself. There are a few more people I want to bring on to talk about this topic. There's going to be a new series. The new series will be a little one-sided. And without Jimmy, I won't be able to challenge people as much on the technological side, because I'm not as well versed on that end of the Bitcoin world. But I want to make sure that everything I have to say about the situation is on video. It's in the YouTube blockchain. And I don't plan to delete it. Like, I don't really delete any of my content. A lot of my videos are kind of, I've removed a lot of videos at the moment, but that was for crazy legal reasons several years ago. I should probably make everything public again. But I'm just being a little lazy on that. But those are like old trading streams. All the old fork videos are still there. This series will be here forever unless YouTube deletes it, and I will bring you a few more afterwards. All right, without any further ado, Jimmy, I'm going to go to screen share.
Mm-hmm. And again, I haven't seen any of this. This is my first time, just so you know.
So I'm going to, I did this presentation on stage. Now I'm not pressed for time, so it would be, I can try to dig into it a little bit more, but also most of you have seen it, but not Jimmy. So Jimmy, this presentation, I was traveling the world giving this presentation starting around 2018. And this presentation was mostly done at shitcoin conferences, explaining why Bitcoin is the only decentralized asset and everything else is centralized. I dusted off this presentation in order to explain what makes Bitcoin decentralized, which was always the premise of the presentation. But this time around, instead of using Bitcoin's decentralization model through this triangle and trying to educate people attending shitcoin conferences why Bitcoin is the only decentralized asset and everything else is basically centralized, I redid the presentation because my view is that the activation of BIP 110 centralizes Bitcoin in all three facets of Bitcoin's checks and balances, which are code, mining, and nodes. And not only are these the three decentralizing elements of the Bitcoin network, each of these elements is also decentralized within itself to the best of its ability, right? So the goal is so that none of these three parts are able to dominate the network over the other two checks and balances, and everything inside each of them also is decentralization maximizing. That's how I see the power of Bitcoin and what makes Bitcoin interesting to me and Ethereum not interesting to me. So that's kind of the premise here. Any comments?
Well, I don't know if I agree with the premise then. I don't think mining is maximally decentralized. I don't think the code is maximally decentralized.
No, it's not, but that's the goal, right?
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think we're all trying to get to a decentralized mining world.
Correct.
I mean,
correct,
I don't know. Maybe the miners don't, because they like making money, and the more hash power they have, the more money they make.
Right,
like
but
the
hold
code,
on.
I mean, to some degree, I guess it is, but it's
Okay, so
yeah. I mean, I'm
let
not
me
sure if you're
rephrase.
talking
Let me
about
rephrase.
purpose or reality, because those two things are a
Let
little
me
bit different right now.
let me rephrase, right? We would like for each of these parts to have maximum decentralization, for Bitcoin to be more unstoppable. Agreed?
Yes, I
Okay.
agree with that.
Now,
Okay.
one more thing. Do you agree that Bitcoin has more decentralization inside each of these parts than any other shitcoin or crypto
Yes,
project?
absolutely. By miles. By
Okay.
like by
Okay,
many miles. Yeah.
so we agree. I'm not saying everything is perfect, but we agree on what we want.
Yeah, I mean, I might quibble with you on like it being code. Maybe I would call it protocol or something like that. But I mean,
All right, you
it's
get the
generally
point.
the same. I get your
I'm,
point. I don't want to
Jimmy,
quibble on
I
the
try
nits
to
of that.
I dumb this down for the people attending shitcoin conferences, man.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta give
Yeah,
me a break here.
fair enough. All right. Let's keep moving.
Okay, so why do I think code is the most decentralized part in Bitcoin versus any other project? And that's because of the high quality and the number of developers that are coding Bitcoin code. In addition, I believe that Bitcoin's code is probably the most transparent open source project in the world. And when I said that, Mechanic laughed at that statement, saying that Bitcoin Core and the coding of Bitcoin client is actually not very transparent. He did this in his rebuttal to my interview, which I thought was
All
insane.
right. So what are you claiming here? What's the claim that that you're making, and then I'll evaluate that before I hear what Mechanic had to say.
Well, again, the claim is that Bitcoin has the most transparency and the most high quality mix of developers that are looking out for its best interest. And that's because many shitcoins have, a single greatest developer that ever existed. And Ethereum can claim they have more developers, but it's not the quantity or individual quality, it's the combination of quality plus times the quantity of developers and the transparency of the code itself. And that's what separates Bitcoin from any other shitcoin towards more decentralization.
Okay. Well, so if you're comparing it relative to shitcoins, I think I would agree with that. That
Okay.
Bitcoin has a more diverse group of people that contribute. That like decisions aren't made in a centralized manner, and so on. But that's not to say that it couldn't be better. And
Oh,
I
sure.
think
No, Jimmy,
and
things could always be better. I'm
right.
not gonna
The
argue.
question is how where are we on the spectrum of like really decentralized and fairly centralized, and I think there's a case to be made that it's actually a little bit more centralized than you would think. It's maybe especially in the last few years, the impression I get is that there's a lot
Um,
more gatekeeping of certain
I know
things and
we
things like
agree.
that.
We
Hmm.
This is why this is why we're going to be showing slides from John Attack's presentation, right? I
Hmm.
agree that I'm not very happy with Bitcoin Core. I don't know why people are calling me a Bitcoin Core shill. I am not. I have been saying for years that I have not been happy with the trend that the coding and the Bitcoin Core is slightly trending towards centralization.
Wait, can you
But
go back a slide? Because the thing that you just showed here versus the previous slide don't seem to match up. Because you have
because
Peter
no,
Woolley.
it's time. That's because this thing on the left is from 2016. This right here is from 2019, and this is right now.
Yeah, that I thought something was off. I'm like, Gavin
Yeah,
hasn't contributed in a while.
yeah. No, it's
And
because that's because unfortunately there has only been two research articles published analyzing contributions of core developers to the code. Like, yes, we can all see this on GitHub, but
uh-huh.
I wish there was like a newsletter that would actually like do more in-depth analysis on like this. This was an awesome article. I have it like I can't click on it, but we can type it in. And
Mm-hmm.
somebody wrote a research paper analyzing actual like what have the developers done in
Hmm.
detail, not just like lines of commits.
Yeah, and I just want to point out there that this is a fairly old list. Like if
Yeah.
you look at the contributors now, it's very different. I mean,
Okay, Jimmy,
it's crazy because like people like John Newberry who stopped
I
contributing
know,
like
Jimmy.
4 years ago isn't even on here. So it's
I
like,
know, Jimmy, but I started the present. I said I started doing this presentation in 2018. All I had was
okay,
this
all
thing
right,
on the right. In
okay.
2019, this came out, and for presentation 2 weeks ago, I can actually put this in, right? But I'm not
Mhm,
gonna do an in depth,
mhm.
charts like those guys did. Anyway, we
Okay,
do
all right,
have to
fair.
again. So you got to look at it from the lens of Bitcoin versus shitcoins. Okay, so
Mhm,
this was a slide again from 2018 where I compared the Bitcoin core developers that coded version 14, which is one version, basically SegWit. That was 0.13, but this is pretty much SegWit versus the group of developers that Bitcoin Cash had. And my argument was, yes, maybe one or two of these developers is the greatest one in the world, but I would prefer this group of people because of their quality multiplied by their quantity, right? It's quality times quantity to me, not a single, developer. And this brings me to everyone technical that I found that is, really pro knots. Your name was on this list. And some people here that don't really code. I don't think Bitcoin Mechanic codes. I
he
mean,
does.
Chris, he does. Okay. So this is the list of technical people that are pro knots. And in my presentation, I literally said, you're the only person that I would trust coding my website. And that's where a
Mhm.
mechanic was like laughing. You wouldn't let Luke code your website, to which I replied, didn't he get his Bitcoin hacked? Why would I let him code my website that has Bitcoin payments in it? Right. I know it's a little more complicated than that, but this is
I get what you're saying, but this feels like, oh, consensus of scientists agree that climate change is happening. It's like so, I mean, like, really, that's the metric you're going to use. I like it. I'd rather people have people verify rather than like, okay, well, that's a bigger list than this one, and there's some names that I recognize in this one than that one. Hey, like,
right,
how
but
many
these are
people
also the
actually
people.
evaluate the code of any of these people? I
But
mean,
these are the people that are also verifying the code, right? So it's
mhm.
like again, like I'd rather have people verify the code. Sure, I would rather have this many qualified people verify the code than this many, right?
Yeah, I agree, but I mean, like, I get that this is from a presentation on, at a shitcoin conference or whatever, but like it really kind of feels like, hey, like consensus of scientific whatever agrees that climate change is happening, therefore you shouldn't be questioning climate change. It's like, I mean, like, yeah, there are people reviewing and stuff, but like what, like a
Well,
lot of people don't even couldn't
I
tell,
don't
like
really,
a bad
Jimmy,
developer
that's a
from a
little
good
bit.
developer. How are you supposed to know?
No, but that's a little bit of a straw man, right? No, it's more like saying I would rather have these experienced 10,000 scientists researching climate change versus just these five that I don't trust, right? Like I look at it from that point of view, not from the point of view that they've come up with the conclusion. I'm like, yes, I would rather have the maximum number of very qualified, environmental and earth science PhDs researching climate change than five guys I don't trust because I don't know what they're going to come back with.
Yeah, but your argument is, okay, these people think that op return is bad and these people don't, and I'm going to listen to the people that are in the majority that I quote unquote trust. Like, I mean, it sounds exactly like the climate change argument to
It's
me.
not about op return, right? It's about who's going to be coding Bitcoin into the future, right?
Yeah, but your argument before was, hey, here are the people that are on one side. I don't trust any of them. Here are the people. You said it just now. I
Yes.
wouldn't trust, except for me, I guess. I wouldn't trust any of these people to code my website. All these other people, I totally would. I mean,
I didn't
like,
say that.
I guess you could say that. I don't know how good these people honestly are at coding websites. I suspect many of them are very good
All
at
right.
it,
Well,
but like, I mean,
that
it
wasn't
seems
that
kind of
wasn't
like
joke,
that.
right?
That's the metric you're using, is I trust these people for some reason. I don't know, like, to what degree you're technical
So
on that, but that's, it seems like a climate
I'm
change argument to me. I like that's what it seems like to me when you're saying, especially when you present it that way, as here are the opinions of these people, here are the opinions of these people. I'm gonna go with these people because there's more of them and I trust them more, or
Well, I
something
trust
like
them
that.
more because they haven't steered me wrong up to this point, right? Bitcoin was at an all-time high with all-time high in adoption, all-time high in price, in my opinion. I mean, the price thing is factual. Adoption could be debatable, right? In my opinion, adoption of Bitcoin is only rising, right? I don't have a problem with governments buying Bitcoin. I don't have a problem with Saylor buying Bitcoin. I don't like how he's holding Bitcoin, but I don't have a problem with him buying it. I don't have a problem with BlackRock having an ETF, right? I'm not, I think there is an attack vector from them having an ETF in the future, right? I think there's an attack vector there, but Bitcoin is also, free for anybody to adopt, right? So the reason why I prefer this list of people, uh, the longer list of people, is because in October, when Core v30 was released, right, Bitcoin price all-time high, Bitcoin adoption all-time high, right? So I don't see where these people have steered Bitcoin wrong. The BIP 110 side certainly sees where they steered it wrong. I can empathize with their views that they don't like shitcoining on top of Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is 17 years old. I know not all of, these people have been there for at least 10 years. I know some of them have left, right? But this is a screenshot from almost 10 years ago now. This is a 2017 screenshot, right? These people have taken Bitcoin up to this point, and that's why I trust them, right? So this isn't like, these guys are, saying climate change, which we know is, like that. That's way more corrupt than this, right? So that's why I trust them, not blind trust. It's trust that has been built over a decade plus.
Okay, well, so another aspect of this is, most of that list isn't in the Core 30 version, right? Like, Maxwell
No.
stopped
The core
contributing.
30 version is right here. No, this is the new
Uh
list.
huh.
It's right there on the side there.
Uh huh. Right.
Okay.
So Lorenk is on that previous list.
I don't know. I'm not reading every name.
I mean, to my knowledge, he started contributing more recently than was
This
in
the
that 14.
screenshot was taken literally during
Right, right, right.
during the.
So like
I didn't edit
the
this.
group of people that maybe you trusted in the past, it's not the same group of people. I mean, there's a
No, it's not
decent
exactly the same
overlap,
group of people,
obviously.
but it's a new group of people, right? But
Hmm.
they have taken Bitcoin to the point of releasing Core v30,
Hmm.
which at the time of its release, I had more confidence in Bitcoin, the decentralized protocol, more than ever. And my point of all of this is that the activation of BIP 110 fires those people. This is the point of contention. Like, this is the point where you and I should be arguing, right? Not little semantics of scientists
Well,
and climate
I'm
change.
just trying to go through your thing and trying to
I know.
see like where
I
people
know,
would find flaws. That's
at
all.
this at this rate, we could be talking forever, right? So I think the real point of contention, right, is like here we have Data who wrote recently. So here's his tweet, right? I'll zoom in on it. After BIP 110 activates, this would be an explicit abuse and would cause another soft fork, limiting the new format if popular node implementation fails to filter it. So this is basically almost an admission that, and then there's also a little bit more back and forth. I have it right here. You guys can pause it and take a look. So I don't know what the expectation is here. First of all, what is going to happen after BIP 110 activates? There have
Mhm.
some kind of a temporary. Hold on. Let me. I'm gonna do this actually, so that we're not blocking the screen. And so here, popular. Let me read this one real quick. In the context of the post, here we go. The only reason filters can fail is if popular node implementations voluntarily remove them, which they obviously will not do after BIP 110. But we both agree that people can get around all these filters. And like what are they expecting? Are they expecting to? I agree with this. So you think Core will start updating filters in consensus when they refused to do so in policy? So again, to me, the activation of BIP 110 is firing of Bitcoin Core. I know that the BIP 110 crowd wants to fire Core. They're
What do
like
you mean by fire core? What does
they
that
don't
mean?
want they. So many people believe that Core developers, as a group, you and I know that Core is somewhat decentralized, not as much as they used to be, but they're still a somewhat decentralized entity to the best of their ability, which is not as good as it used to be. But so many people don't want any Core developers coding because of what they did with OpReturn and a few other things. And they are more than happy to hand the reins to a new crop of people led by Datamom, Luke Jewar, and I don't know who else. And that is the thing that scares me the most because I
Okay,
don't
and
believe.
you kind of have a very binary view of the future. Then it's either core is the main reference or implementation, or I guess the BIP 110 client is the reference implementation. Am I getting that right? That's your view that it's either one or the other. That there's no possibility of other clients or anything like that. Is that am I getting your
Well,
position correct?
no, there's always a possibility of other clients. We have other clients today, right?
Hmm.
Knots was the other client, but the dominant client in control of, in control of almost all the changes, right? In control of all the defaults has been Core. And if BIP 110 activates, I do not believe that will be true going forward. I
That
believe that
wait,
not
what will be true going forward? Sorry, what will
that
be true going forward? That
that the
core
core
Bitcoin
client.
core will no longer be in control of.
I don't believe Bitcoin Core will be the default client with an
Okay,
80% majority that it is now. I believe if
okay.
BIP 110 succeeds,
Hmm.
BIP 110 and the developers behind BIP 110
Hmm.
will be will be the new core. Basically, they will be.
Wait, so they'll have 80% of the clients? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they will be the majority of the. They will. I don't know what the number will be, right? Like it could be 80, it could be 90, it could be 60. But the developers of knots, which are the same people as BIP 110, they will now decide what the future changes to the code will be. They will drive the bus of the future changes in Bitcoin. And that
and
scares me
why would that be?
because I believe that most of the Bitcoin core developers will stop coding on Bitcoin.
Okay, because all right, so let me say what you just said in my own words and tell me if I'm incorrect in anything. You believe that if BIP 110 succeeds, that the Bitcoin core devs currently, all the people that are coding currently, including Aja Towns and Darcior and Instagibbs and A Chow and all those usernames that you pulled up before, that they would no longer be coding because BIP 110 succeeded, and that basically BIP 110 would be mostly the only game in town, and therefore they would have a majority. Maybe there are people that stay on older versions of Core or use alternative clients, but the vast majority of the network would be on knots. Is that a fair summation of what you just said?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to know why I think you're wrong?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
This is
all right.
why this is literally why we're doing this show.
Yeah. All right. So first, I don't think I don't think people quit that easily. All right.
I still hear you. I just gotta find where the light is around here.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So
keep talking. I hear you.
Okay. All right. So first of all, like, would you quit a job because a competitor came on? Right. Like that's kind of what it sounds like to me. You're, I don't know, Microsoft Windows, and suddenly like the Mac OS starts taking over more market share. So suddenly all the Windows developers quit. That's generally not how things work.
No, that's not how I see it, Jimmy. That's not how I see it. I see it more like I'm a developer at Microsoft, and someone and a new boss came in and reverted a lot of the work that I did. Why would I stay on? I'm gonna leave
because you're still getting paid. I mean, like that would be one major reason.
Somewhere else, you can get paid somewhere else, right?
Right. But that takes energy. That's friction, right? Like, and a lot of these people that are in core, I mean, they haven't been in industry in several years, at least. Some of them like haven't ever been, right? Because they came straight out of high school or college, and this is their first job, basically, is working on core.
Then explain.
I mean, to tell me that all those people are just going to like all rage quit at the same time. Just
explain something else, Jimmy. Explain something else. Why would the entities that pay them, like Blockstream and Chaincode, why would they keep paying people if their changes are going to get reverted by a vocal minority on Twitter?
Well, what changes are getting reverted exactly? Because the code that you're talking about, right? It's BIP 110. First, Knots is a fork of Core. We all know this, right? It's the vast majority of the code that all these developers work on is not consensus code. It's on stuff like fuzz testing and removing boost and refactoring and writing unit tests and things like that. They're in Knots just as much as they're in Core. Even if you fork all of that, doesn't get quote unquote reverted. It's all still there.
That doesn't make me more comfortable, right? Like again.
Wait, no. Because you're saying they're all going to quit because their work got reverted. It's not. In what practical way is it the only change that's quote unquote reverted, I guess, is maybe you can make the argument that Instagibbs change on the data carrier size PR gets reverted. Maybe and really it's additions to the code, right? This is a soft fork. This is more rules that they're adding. It's not reverting anything per se. It's just adding more rules. So like very strictly speaking, like when you're saying all their work is now reverted, I don't think that's true, or unless you mean something else, like maybe they don't have as much power as before. That I can kind of buy, right? Like if you're used to being the driver of everything, and now okay, you're no longer the driver, and you have to get like more consensus from developers and knots or something like that to get your changes in, and that feels even more burdensome than the core process, which is fairly burdensome already. Then maybe that tips them over the edge, and what, screw this, I'm gonna go do something else.
Okay.
I mean, plenty of developers have done that in the past, so I can buy that argument. But their changes getting reverted, that this is where I'm like, I don't think this is how that works, and I don't understand what you're saying.
Jimmy, like the majority of core developers have stated publicly that there is a reason why they removed, the op return limit. The op return limit comes back. That is literally telling the core developers, we're gonna undo the work that you did. When merge. What do you mean? How?
Because those two are separate things, right? Right. So the change before is a policy change, right? This is at a per node level, it's a filter change. It's what transactions are being relayed. The soft fork in BIP 110 is a different thing. This is a consensus level rule for that stuff. Now, like it or not, those are very different things. It's not reverting anything. It's not saying, okay, let's go and undo that. In fact, the Knots kind of does that already, right? It actually doesn't take the patch set that with Instagib's pull request. It actually makes sure that it doesn't have that. So like when you're saying it's like nullifying or reverting, it's nothing of that kind. It's adding code, and it's at a different layer. It's not at the policy or filter layer. This is at the consensus layer. Now,
right? They're trying
not to say that I like all pro this or anti this or anything like that. Just from a strictly technical coding perspective, there's nothing getting reverted.
Okay, so their views on Bitcoin are, I mean, like, I don't know another word, right? The op return limit was removed. BIP 110 brings in a consensus change that undoes that. Is that the best way to phrase it?
What do you mean by, let's just get the terminology correct here. When you say the op return limit was removed, what do you mean?
I literally mean this. It went from 83 bytes to 100 kilobytes.
Okay. And what changed there?
What do you mean? Well, consensus didn't change, right? Policy changed.
Policy changed. Okay.
Yes.
Right. So policy changed from 83 to 100,000. Okay.
Yes.
And what's BIP 110 changing?
Well, BIP 110 puts it back at 83.
It's not putting the policy back at 83. It's changing the consensus. This is a different layer.
No, but that so what? It doesn't matter, right?
No, I don't think you're getting this. These are different layers.
And like, I don't understand. I don't understand the difference, right? Because
between policy and consensus.
No, I understand the difference between policy. I understand the difference between policy and consensus. I don't see the difference in a mob movement telling another group, no, you're not doing that. Yes, they're going back to 83 bytes. Yes, they're going to it through consensus, which bothers me even more because now you have a small minority forcing a consensus change.
All right, so maybe that's the real objection here, or in your scenario, what the core devs would object to is that somebody else is proposing something for the network that they don't agree with, or something like that. Is that the real thing that's going to force them all to quit?
These are two independent things, right? I have a problem with the fact that there is a consensus change being forced onto the network. That is a completely different concern than the concern of the changes that are coming in, like Merch said on our show, that the inscription bug is not a bug. It was a choice that was discussed and agreed upon, maybe not by everyone on Twitter, but it was a conscious decision and it wasn't a bug. Now, BIP 110 makes it, again, with a consensus change, which is a different concern of mine, treats it as a bug and removes it, which means they are undoing what the core developers collectively decided was the right path. And I don't see how developers who chose path X, a boss comes in, tells them, no, we're not doing this. We're going to go completely backwards. Everything you've done is crap. We're going to revert. We're going to undo these changes. We're going to add new code and we're going to make them obsolete. Like, why would that person still have respect for what's happening right there?
All right. So, Tone, I think this is where I don't think you know what it's like being a developer. Like, so there are lots of changes that you make as a developer that end up being duds, that end up being useless or like harmful in some way, and some person says, hey, you know what, like that didn't work, or that, we thought it would have these effects and it didn't. So I think, and they, this happens all the time in every business, is that you add a new feature, people don't like it, so you revert the feature. So even in core, right? This is something that's happened in the past. BIP 37. This is Merkle proofs for SPV, simplified payment verification. So something that Matt Corallo and Mike Hearn implemented. I think it was back in 2012 or 2013 or something like that. And it had all sorts of problems, right? It, among other things, there was it ends up being sort of like a DDoS vector for the nodes that are communicating with the light nodes. And for the light nodes, the server can still lie to you. So it's like on both ends, it didn't really make any sense. Now, since then, we have a compact block. Is it compact filters or something like that? There's a whole different way of figuring out if your transaction was in a block, and that's using. I know Neutrino uses it and stuff like that, but that's a much less abusive way, right? Like there's no DDoS vector, there's no possibility of the server lying to you, because you get the filter and the header is in the block and so on, and they have to show you the proof and all that. Like that's sort of stuff happens all the time in software engineering, where you work on a feature, turns out to be a dud, or turns out to have flaws in it that you didn't anticipate, and you revert the feature. Doesn't cause every software developer to quit. In fact, that's very rare. In fact, and if you're a good software developer, you recognize and learn from those mistakes, rather than sort of like hold your ground and say, you know what, if my manager tells me that my feature was crap, or that it didn't do what they wanted, then I'm going to quit because I stand behind my work. Like people, that's not how software development works. If something goes wrong, and it goes wrong all the time in software development, right? If there's something that you thought might work and doesn't, then you go and revert it. Reverting it is oftentimes the most sensible thing to do, the wisest thing to do.
Okay. We gotta. I mean, like again, we're literally. I really thought we would be way further along by now. Mm-hmm. Yes, what you say could be true when you actually have real use cases that it was actually dangerous, which hasn't happened, right? This is the other thing, right? It's just massive fear mongering that removing this limit is somehow dangerous, which it isn't.
Well, I mean, that's a whole CSAM argument, but I mean, like right. your main, but let's go back, right? Your big fear, right, of a BIP 110 succeeding is that all these core developers would quit because their work is nullified or invalidated or quote unquote reverted or something like that. And I'm just telling you, that's not true. That's not how developers are. And if that were the case, I don't think we'd have any developers anywhere, because this happens to every developer. Not all your features are grand slams or home runs or even singles. You don't hit everything out of the park.
Jimmy, I said we got to move on. Jimmy, we have to move on. I said my piece. You disagreed. You said your piece. We got to move on. We have a lot more topics.
But tone. I want to, because the big fear that you have is
you're not gonna alleviate
the client. I just don't think that's true.
That's fine.
That's the premise of your argument. Jimmy, that ends up being something that you have to talk about.
You've said your point like 5 times. Fine, but you're not gonna. It's a concern. You're not gonna alter my concern because you disagree with my concern. You disagree with my concern. Great, you explained why.
Okay, fair enough. Let's move on.
Let the public decide, right? Let the viewers decide if they should be concerned like me or they should not be concerned like you. But I'm just telling you my concern, and it's going to remain a concern. I think BIP 110 will fail, so we will never know if these developers are going to quit. But if BIP 110 succeeds, we will know if my concern is valid or not.
Yeah, fair enough. I just know that like entire groups of open source developers very rarely quit en masse like that. So, okay.
So more specifically on just one of the tweets that I wrote is that people are saying that like raising the SOP return limit is what killed a bunch of shit coins, including BSV. By the way, this wasn't in my presentation, but because this happened after my presentation. But I had to reply that it's incorrect. The shit coins failed because they're shit coins. Removing the op return limit is just as irrelevant as them tightening the op return limit. That would not have mattered, right? Like to me, again, this is a terrible mechanic talking point that BSV fell apart because the chain had infinite block space and people put CSAM on it. People probably put CSAM on it because there was nothing else that it was useful for. So you might as well just throw that shit on there or just for shits and giggles. But it was basically dead regardless of their op return, because that's another talking point from BIP 110 people that, look at all of look at Bcash and look at BSV that blew up their op return. But that's because they were going to be dead regardless. That didn't matter.
I mean, Tone, but that's kind of a disingenuous argument, right? They're already dead, so you can't kill it anymore. Therefore, it does nothing. I mean, it's not really the argument that they're making. It's that it made it more difficult for BSV to survive. I agree. It was dead from the beginning. I don't think anyone disputes that, especially with a fraudulent scammer like CSW at the helm. But the fact that it made it more difficult for that chain because of CSAM, I think is like a reasonable point. Like to say, it's completely invalid because the chain was dead anyway. It's not really addressing the main issue, in my opinion.
Well, for me, it's more like the other way. They're using it as a reason as to why these things failed. And I'm just saying that's not the reason why it failed.
Yeah, it might not be, but like it's one of the things that certainly didn't help it.
All right. So anyway, that is basically my concern, that the passing of BIP 110 would centralize the current code development more. Because remember, in the beginning of the discussion, we said, hey, the coding part of the Bitcoin decentralized network is not trending in the direction we would like. I think that the coding of the Bitcoin blockchain was more decentralized back in those 2017 days than it is today. I think it is more centralized today than 6 years ago. Do you agree?
I think that much, yeah.
Right. And I feel that if BIP 110 succeeds, it would centralize it even more. You might disagree with that statement, but I feel that the passing of BIP 110 would centralize code development more, with Luke Dash-Jur being at the top of that pyramid. That is my opinion. It's going to be hard to convince me otherwise, but you're welcome to disagree with it.
Yeah, I do disagree with it because I don't see evidence that all these developers would quit en masse. I think Bitcoin Core continues. If anything, you have at least 2 competing implementations with a significant amount of market share. That means that they all have to kind of work together whenever you want consensus changes. I really don't see like Luke being like the emperor of Bitcoin after that on the coding side as a result. I think that's, if anything, if BIP 110 succeeds, then it shows that other soft forks from an intolerant minority can succeed, in which case you're probably going to get OpsCTV from some other corner. You're probably going to get other people trying different things, and then we see what happens. But this is part of the thing where there's a lot of unknowns, and this is the part where I take issue with sort of your certainty on that. I don't know what's going to happen, and I've made this clear over all of these shows that I think it's a mistake to think that you know what's going to happen on this stuff. I mean, it very well might come to the point where you say where Luke's sort of like the benevolent dictator of Bitcoin code or something like that. I personally see that as a very, very remote possibility. But like it might do that. But there's so many uncertainties and unknowns around this thing that to say, well, if X happens, then Y is definitely going to happen. I just don't see it that way. I really don't. And there's so many different things. There's so many incentives on people that you have no idea about, right? Like for example, you saying that all these core devs would quit. Well, that presupposes
all
individual situations about
right? Like it's not,
do they need a job or do they need money? Do they have families to support? Or do they have alternates that pay just as much and stuff like that? Like these are questions that like you can't possibly know the answers to. So
I agree with you. I don't know the answers to them, which is why it's a concern, right? Jimmy, again, I'm not saying every single one will quit. I'm just saying I have a concern because a lot of these developers are actually volunteering. They're not being paid, okay? I don't see why they would continue to be volunteering if what they believe in is getting invalidated by a bunch of cats on Twitter. I wouldn't.
All right. So, Tone, what percentage of people, contributors, do you think are paid, and what percent don't? What's the split between paid contributors versus unpaid contributors, in your opinion?
And my guess, about 30% are paid. The rest are volunteers.
Okay, that's way off.
It's
at least the reverse. At least the reverse.
I'm just
at least lines of code and stuff like that is like. A very large number of the contributors that contribute get paid or have some grant in some way. There are a few people that are especially wealthy that don't and are happy to do it, but the vast majority of the contributions, as far as I can tell, are coming from people that do get paid.
And who's paying them?
Chain Code Labs, localhost, Brink, Presidio or Square or the Blockstream. These are all the companies. Yeah.
And you don't see the amount of money the core developers are being paid to be reduced if BIP 110 passes.
Well, they're all grants, right? Like these are the way these things work is that you get a grant for some fixed amount of time and you have to renew your grant afterwards. Now, it's possible that they pull these grants, who knows? But a lot of these are foundations, right? They already have the money available. So OpenSats, for example, got like a big grant from Jack Dorsey, for example, and it's their job to go and distribute. HRF has a similar thing. They got, and it's all sort of earmarked for them already. So it's not like, oh, you know what, we're gonna pull all funding because Bitcoin went sideways or something like that. That's not how these organizations work. As far as I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe your scenario plays out because there's all these people that are suddenly like, let's, I want my money back that I contributed to this thing. I don't know if they.
Well, not back. It's just that they're gonna. It's not that they want it. It's not like they're gonna get it back. It's just that like why. Well, why would you keep paying the developer if a mob on Twitter gets to undo their work? Anyway, the other thing that like I gotta clarify, I have no idea what is going to happen. Okay, what I'm expecting BIP 110 to fail. I have fairly good confidence that it will fail. You can disagree, right? You may have a lot more confidence that BIP 110 will succeed. I have confidence that
I don't have any confidence that
so
I have no confidence in any of that stuff.
Okay, so I have confidence that BIP 110 will fail, and I want it to fail. Like I want to, like I'm not being like two-faced here. I want BIP 110 to fail, and this is why we're going through my concerns as to why I want BIP 110 to fail. I think it's going to fail. If it does not fail, I have absolutely no clue what is going to happen, right? So just like you, I'm completely clueless. I have no opinions what's going to happen. I'm just going through my concerns as to what I'm concerned about if BIP 110 succeeds. I don't know if other people have these concerns, and if people watching don't have these concerns. It's something for you to think about. You can ignore these concerns. Jimmy doesn't see them as concerns, and that's why we're doing this show.
Yeah, I mean, again, like we're working in hypotheticals here. So, but the show is about why you think BIP 110 is bad, and we're it's contingent on if it succeeds and it has these consequences. I'm not sure those consequences follow so far. Let's keep going. Let's do mining.
Okay, so wait, before we do mining, let's we're so far behind. So this is John Attack's presentation. I texted the conference. This is why anytime videos get recorded at conferences, they only get released like 8 months later, and no one freaking watches them, right? So this was not live streamed. It was a great presentation. He did a whole presentation. It was 3 parts. It was explaining the BIPs process. It was explaining the developer mailing list, and then explaining Bitcoin Core. So I'm just gonna go through a presentation. You guys are happy to pause it. I'm gonna go straight to the Bitcoin Core part. And because it's like 50 slides, so I'm gonna be hitting this button like 50. I'm just gonna go straight to Bitcoin Core. But the link to this presentation will be, Jimmy, you sent me the link. He made it public. It's not currently in the video description, but I promise I'll put the link to the slides in the video description. So when we get to like slide 40 or something, Bitcoin Core. So these are his concerns, and I thought he did a great presentation. Would have been great to have him on the show because I agree with him. This is what's been concerning for me for the last like 5 or 6 years, even though I wasn't paying close enough attention. But hey, I'm hearing all this Bitcoin stuff comes at me from the sides everywhere, no matter how much I try to get out, and I have been concerned over where Bitcoin Core is going. And he put it all into slides. So we're just going to read them real quick. A lot's changed from 2019. Developers, there were 4 to 6 maintainers, 4 project owners, funding organizations. So a lot of that's been changing. There was a lead maintainer. Vladimir Vanderland was kind of like the main person. That went away, mostly because of, Craig Wright was like suing everybody left and right. Bitcoin Core was more decentralized all around the world with core maintainers all around the world. And everyone was pretty much working from home. And again, he names names. Where are the cypherpunks, sovereign individuals, the replacements of Vladimir Vanderland, Peter Willa, Gregory Maxwell. That's AJ Towns, right?
Yes.
Right. And then, like lacks of criteria to be a developer. He saw it firsthand that DEI came in. He's a white guy, so he had more trouble getting funding than someone that had a specific color or gender. So he noticed all of that happening around him. The developers, the core maintainers are now all in San Francisco. They're all working in the same office. So he did a whole presentation, and once the video comes out, I'm happy to share it with everyone. And that's why I thought it was a great presentation, showing the trend in the wrong direction of centralization of Bitcoin Core. And I agree with this, right? And again, my concern, that's why I wanted to point to his presentation of where Core has been going. And I'm hoping that this controversy over the op return and everything that's happening over the last 6 months when it blew up since Core v30 was released, I'm hoping that this helps rehabilitate Core, even though every time I say that, everyone makes fun of me for saying that core can't rehabilitate itself, just like the government can't rehabilitate itself. That is probably true, right? Maybe I'm being completely crazy thinking that, hey, maybe core will realize that if they continue on this trend, that something like BIP 110 might actually succeed and replace core and be the dominant client, and none of these core developers will be relevant anymore. And maybe Bitcoin Core will stop the DEI shit and try to go back to how it was back in 2016, 17, 18 days, right? So I'm hoping that, and he talked about the culture. So I'm just showing you guys the slides because he's not here to actually do the presentation. So I'm hoping that this helps rehabilitate core, or we have a situation with multiple competing clients, and maybe one of these competing clients, it could have been not. You know what would have been actually perfect that I could have gotten behind? If knots continued to draw market share of nodes, they made it to 20%, and then they make it to 30%. And as they get to 30%, people like John Attack and several other Bitcoin Core developers that are frustrated with core would officially join the knots coding group, and it would have some kind of funding. Maybe Ocean would be the first company doing grants, and then knots picks up 30% instead of 20, and they get a few more core developers, and then they get to 60%, then they get to 50%, and then 60%, and then they become the dominant client. With going back to my presentation, if they had become the dominant client with a nice, large, diversified list of developers on their client, and then their changes would start to become the default changes. Maybe this is a 1 year goal. Maybe it's a 2 year goal. Maybe this is going to take 5 years. But that is the path I want to see: either a bunch of competing clients, which completely decentralize the network, or another client organically become more, I don't want to use the word trusted, right? More confidence building in their combination of quantity plus quality of developers with a track record, with experience, and then pushing. And then they may not even need a user activated soft fork to get these kinds of changes in, right? This is my problem, is that the user activated soft fork is came way too soon, like years too soon, before people like myself would gain trust in knots implementation. There you go. Now you can rant at me all you like.
Well, so just I don't know if you're aware, but Gloria Zhao is no longer a
I'm aware.
maintainer. Okay, right.
Is that a good thing? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Hold on. Because there is some controversy here, right? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Do you think?
Well, so she, I don't think was fit to really handle it, just because I mean, like, I get why she quit, right? Like, part of it is that she became sort of like the face of core for the Knots camp, and she honestly did get quite a bit of abuse, and I don't think it was merited on her, largely because I don't know, she became sort of like the symbol of DEI and so on. She's under 30, and she got a pretty big maintainer position after maybe a year or two of contributing, which a lot of people that had been contributing significantly more didn't get. So there was some view of her that she was sort of like the DEI thing, and I don't know if it was really that fair to her that she got the brunt of all the vitriol and hate. Now that said, she did sort of treat people a little bit like they didn't matter, a little condescendingly, especially on Twitter early on in this controversy. But that said, she ended up getting out because as she said, she didn't like the abuse, and she wasn't, I guess that fond of, being that. So she's out. So, um, does that mean that it's that core is necessarily more, I guess, meritocratic or more? I don't know. I don't want to use the word decentralized because, in a sense, it's the exact same structure as before. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but it does seem like, there's this is one of the consequences of this whole saga, is that, Goulart's gone. And, to be fair, she did some good mempool work, right? Like, I think she had package relay, or she was participating in some of that, and there's some of that stuff that she's definitely contributed.
Well, look, she's got a lot of lines of commits.
Well,
there.
she's a maintainer, so anything you merge, I think you get credit for, at least partly. Which is why Orion Wool or Lanwuj there has the most, because that's how I think it works. Chow, like Schnelly used to be, and Sipa used to be, and so on. So I mean, it's and Habasto is currently. So there's a bunch of I like, whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing. Like, I don't know. There've been people that have quit core many times, and whether that makes room for more talented people or you're losing a lot of experience. I don't really know how to answer that, because I honestly don't know her that well, and her work, I am a little familiar with it, and how she ran things. It's like kind of asking, okay, this company lost this manager. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for the company? I don't know. I don't know how that manager treated the employees and so on, and I don't know how people reacted, and what like, because these are sort of internal conversations and things of that nature. So I don't actually know, right? Like, she could have been very good. I don't, but she also could have been like kind of inexperienced and messed up a bunch of times. I don't know. It's hard for me to say.
Okay. I wanted to get your opinion on that. So again, in John's last slide, what can we do? Relying on a single dominant client creates monopoly risk and stifles improvement. I agree with that,
Stifles,
right?
Yeah. Stifles.
Stifles improvement. I'm a dyslexic immigrant, so I can get away with this. So I agree with this, right? Again, the best future for coding decentralization is multiple clients, right? And like a nice diversity of clients. I agree with this 100%, right? But and people misunderstood what I said earlier when I said, hey, if NOTS becomes the new dominant client, I'm not saying that's a good thing, right? But if NOTS was to become the new dominant client, surpassing core, I would then not be as concerned over a user activated soft fork, because the majority of node runners would have spoken, not the minority. This is one of the big differences that makes me very concerned over BIP 110. Do you agree or disagree with that, Jimmy?
No, I don't agree that's like, if the goal is for there to be multiple implementations, then I actually think like BIP 110 succeeding would get you at least part of the way there, because it proves that a non-core soft fork can succeed. And I don't think core goes away. I think it sticks around. I think there's plenty of contributors. There's plenty of work to do. There's plenty of, and again, NOTS is a fork of core. So I can see them coexisting very much so, with like a decent split. I actually think it would go in that direction if it were to succeed. Now, as for the merits of the soft fork, maybe that's something that we can talk about later. But if the goal is to sort of take away this 98% plus monopoly, if you're including NOTS, right? This was what Merch said. If you don't include NOTS, then it ends up being something like 80%. Then yeah, having multiple implementations that a lot of people use would be ideal. And I think that's one thing that we both agree on, that I think will come out of this, is that there will be more clients. I think there will be more implementations, and not just knots and core. I think this sort of bifurcated world between those two is not necessarily the way it's going to play out. I suspect there will be more than two clients. I like, there might be 3, 4, 5 clients, right? It's not hard to make a fork of these. And as far as like contributors or whatever, like the way at least knots works currently is that it's downstream of core. Like whenever there's like a bug in knots, what Luke says is, can you go put it in core so we can go and cherry pick that merge? Like, it's not like they're that separated. Like, I think you have this impression that, it's a completely separate development process. They're actually quite interlinked as a result of that. So,
no, I know, but
maybe that centralizes
also,
it more. I don't know.
But that is also one of my concerns, right? Because going back to what I said, I think that a lot of core developers, not all, I think a vast chunk of core developers may not want to code on Bitcoin going forward with the passing of BIP 110. And the fact that knots is 99.9% core does not make me more comfortable. It would make me more comfortable if knots had 80% completely different code written by knots people that would remain maintaining that code. That would actually make me more comfortable, because the team that wrote the code would remain maintaining the code versus new developers maintaining the code of developers that are no longer want to code.
Well, I mean, the reason why knots is mostly core is so that it doesn't go out of consensus, right? Like, if you have completely different, if you have completely different code base, the fork risk on sort of like a subtle way in which C++ versus some other language handles a particular corner case might cause a chain fork. So that's where the code being the same, the rationale for code being the same is, and I kind of agree with it, right? There is like a very good case to be made that you do kind of want to stay fairly close to the core implementation, just for that reason, so that you reduce sort of like an unintentional fork. Because as we saw back in, I don't know, 0.7 or whatever it was.
Yeah, 2013.
With Berkeley DB versions, and they didn't really realize that that was part of the consensus because of how it worked, and that caused like a chain fork. And
my firm got blamed for that one. Right, but again, it goes back to my concern that if I'm right, and I know it's a big if, but if I'm right and a vast chunk of core developers leave, now you have new developers coming in, which sounds great. We got rid of the evil core. We got rid of the core that was funded by a company that was on Epstein Island. Great. All of their code is now Bitcoin, and you have a bunch of new developers that are now going to be maintaining it. That is not giving me extra confidence at all.
Yeah, I just don't see that as a scenario where you get like a mass rage quit as a result of a soft fork succeeding. I don't see it. A lot of these people, like, their livelihood depends on it, right? Like this is how they get paid, and not a small amount either, right? If I
Jimmy, but it's an incredible resume, right? I was a Bitcoin core maintainer. I'm not happy with the direction that Bitcoin went. They can get amazing jobs now. That's literally an incredible thing on their resume.
I don't think you know the developer job market these days. Like, people are getting laid off left and right from like Google and Amazon and Facebook and all these places. It's not that easy to go and get a job anymore. So here's my like, especially if like Bitcoin Core is the only thing that you've worked on the last 7 years, and you have this big gap in your resume. And it's like, okay, well, how do you work on like delivering goals that with a roadmap? It's like, well, I worked on stuff that I wanted to anytime. You think managers are going to say, oh yeah, we got to go hire this person that wants to only work on whatever they want to work on? Not a chance, right? Like it can actually be a huge negative. to say that, oh, all these developers, if they rage quit, they'd have a $500,000 offer from Google the next day. That's just not true.
So for the record, here's my experience with development. Okay, in my 10 years on Wall Street, development was part of my job, but I was a very shitty developer. And but most of that job was working with developers, identifying bugs in the code, but not by doing code review, identifying bugs in the code from how it's used in the financial world on Wall Street in risk modeling. It's all code databases. So I know how to code in SQL. I know how to code in C++. I was supposed to learn how to code in Python, but I was lazy. And I knew I was going to leave that job in a year or two. So I never really, I started learning it. I didn't really, but it's all the same shit. I was coding in VBA. That was my favorite code base. I've coded in R. So I've done coding, but I was very bad at it. But my job was as the middleman between, the CFAs and financial, guys that use financial code and the developers that write the financial code. And everything went through me. Any spec for the developer that a financial person needed went through me. Any code that they built was, checked by me before it goes into production. Any issues with that code in the risk modeling space after it was released, that new features were needed or a bug, it's not pricing risk of certain assets correctly, went back to me. So I have some experience with working with developers and development, but yes, you know way more than me.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's not your sort of mass quit scenario presupposes that they have very good alternatives right away, and that's at least the current market with a lot of vibe coding and AI models and stuff like that. It's not nearly the same, and it's very different. Honestly, like the coding. The developer experience for a lot of coders has changed like significantly in the last 2 years. It's not anywhere near the same. The tools are all different. And honestly, a lot of core devs, I don't know if they necessarily know how to use Claude Code and mock something out for an app in like 20 minutes that a lot of these people do. It's not so easy, or as the developer market isn't so liquid, or as it's not as incredible a resume as you might suppose. That's all.
All right. We're moving on to part two, something I expected, something I thought we'd be at like 45 minutes ago. Mining. Okay. So now that we've beaten the code part to death, I believe that BIP 110 is also going to make mining more centralized. Not significantly more, but more. And that slide's not important. And one of the reasons is again, Jimmy, you're going to disagree, but from several of our guests, they've explained the technological reason as to why op return limit was removed. I mean, the main reason is that the miners were already ignoring this filter. And with Mara Slipstream, which you can explain, well, I mean, that one is easy to explain. And in order to, anyway, Mara Slipstream is someone pays Mara, to mine a block with a large op return. The other miners don't get a chance to mine it. Mara has an advantage on not only mining that block and earning a higher fee for mining that block, which I know is not substantial. This is the mechanic argument, but it's still there. And in order to eliminate that, Libre Relay was starting to become popular, saying, hey, why does Mara get to have this advantage? Everyone should have this advantage. And this is what Johnny Baer was saying on the panel, and he also mentioned it on our podcast, that, hey, these filters were no longer useful, so what is the point? Let's level the playing field for mining. In addition, if users start actually using large op returns. This is the garbage can example that Mechanic, hates. But hey, if someone is going to put garbage on the blockchain, have them put it into a garbage can that is easier to manage than all these, fake pub keys and again, technical stuff that Jimmy would explain better than me, and I'm just going to stumble trying to explain it. So there is a technical reason for doing it to level the playing field. Now, here's my analogy on this. Yes, it might be small. Bitcoin Mechanic laughed at this, saying this is a completely irrelevant leveling of the playing field. But then my confusion is, at the same time, he believes, and the knots people believe, that by removing this op return, Bitcoin blockchain becomes infinite, unlimited, crazy data storage for monkey JPEGs. But he just said that the need for these large op returns was non-existent and these miners were not making any extra money. So which is it? Is Bitcoin going to become free, unlimited data storage, right? Or is it irrelevant and miners aren't making any money? So that's a bit of a contradiction. Let me just finish this point with one more thing. I'm gonna. I gotta. Actually, no, Jimmy, go ahead and.
Well, so I'm not sure I understand what your argument is. Can you step through it for me? Why is BIP 110 succeeding going to lead to miner centralization, at least a tiny bit? Oh, I'm frozen.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Can you walk through the argument for me? I don't think I quite got it.
So again, because BIP 110 is going to be a consensus change, it probably will not add any more miner centralization, but leaving the op return at 83 bytes was leading towards slight miner centralization. And as we said in the beginning of the show, any little thing that would make the overall mining structure more decentralized is a good thing.
Wait. How does 83 bytes make it more centralized? I don't. So you get a soft fork that says 83 bytes for op return. How does that make it more centralized?
Okay. Let me back up and try and explain it. One of the reasons why the op return limit was removed, right? Because there is this faction out there, the BIP 110 faction, that's saying there was no reason to remove the limit. But this is the reason to remove the limit, because Core did not want to make any consensus changes. They are not the ones pushing for a consensus change. The reason for the removal of the op return limit was to even the playing field, to create more decentralization in the mining part of the triangle.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. So let me try to explain it, and you tell me if I'm incorrect. So what you're saying is, because larger op returns levels the playing field for everyone. So before it was only the large miners getting it. Now it's smaller miners getting it, meaning that smaller miners are therefore more profitable. Therefore, it decentralizes mining through an increase in the op return filter limit. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. But if you soft fork it so that the consensus is at 83, then that also levels the playing field. No?
It does, but a soft fork is a lot more dangerous than changing.
No. But like, if 110 succeeds, then you're in the exact same state as what you were describing, where the rules are same for everybody. Everyone gets the same transactions. So in that respect, I don't see how it centralizes or decentralizes.
Yes. In that respect, correct, right? But in the scenario where BIP 110 fails, which again is my anticipated scenario, right or wrong, in that event, right, reverting, core developers saying that, you know what, that was a mistake, let's remove it, right? Again, the reason they removed it is to level the playing field for miners. So in the scenario where BIP 110 fails, mining decentralization is slightly improved, maybe unnoticeably so, but it's trending in the right direction for more even playing field and more decentralization.
But wait, Tone, but you said that currently with Bitcore 30, everybody gets all the large op return transactions, right? There's no
Yeah,
advantage for a small miner or a big miner.
correct.
If
Yes.
BIP 110 fails, that's still true. Like,
No,
how does
I
that
know.
change?
I know it doesn't. I'm just saying. Okay, I'm just saying that the removal of the limit was an attempt to level the playing field and increase the mining decentralization part of the triangle.
Okay, but your contention, at least at the start of this presentation, was that
I know,
if
but I
BIP
also
110 succeeds, then all these will get more centralized.
well,
They're both level. So is there another argument, or is that I'm
there
not sure
are
I get it.
well, there are other arguments, right?
Okay.
But again, the overall goal is what is happening in Bitcoin. Is it increasing or decreasing Bitcoin's decentralization to because that is the only thing that matters to me. The only thing that matters to me is how decentralized Bitcoin is. Because in my view, the more decentralized Bitcoin is, the more
The better
the more
Bitcoin is. Yeah, it's money.
confidence.
And I totally
Right.
agree with that. Okay.
Exactly. Right.
Okay.
So sure, this one particular thing is not altered necessarily by the soft fork of BIP 110. I'll agree to that. Right. I'm not going to
Mhm.
debate it. Right. I understand that. But given that how I feel dangerous that fork is, the removal of the limit should have happened. Now that I learned the technical reason for it to be removed, it makes sense to me. But the majority of the people on BIP 110 do not want to understand the technical reason for its removal. Do you not agree with that statement? Do you
What
think?
does that have to do with mining? I mean, like, because the argument you're giving is that this helps decentralize, or
I have a
removal of the op return limit help decentralize mining in some small way by changing the profitability of mining for large players versus small players. It leveled the playing field, however slightly. Now we can go debate that later, but I don't think that's really like a good use of our time. But the big thing is um, this soft fork, BIP 110. This is mostly what we're talking about, not relitigating what Core v30 did. It's what NOTs or what the BIP 110 client is attempting to do, which is activate the soft fork. It doesn't change that in any particular way, and in fact, it actually makes it so that everyone is in alignment there, because large op returns are no longer valid, and even the latency issues around that, it actually makes it, you could argue, like even more level than the current situation where you have the large op return ones that maybe get to the centralized miners a little faster because they have better pipes and so on, whereas smaller ones are going to get to everybody around the same time. So I as far as that particular thread of argument, now we could talk about maybe the soft fork itself causing some interaction that I don't know. Maybe you can make an argument around that, but this miners will even get a slightly more centralized as a result of BIP 110 activation. I don't see the argument there.
all right. So I needed it. This is a mining. This was a change that
Mm-hmm.
was made. The removal of the op return limit. The main reason for the change was mining related. So I have it in the mining section. Where else am I going to
Oh,
put
well, I mean, I actually think it was more so, not like, at least from what I understood, the reason that the core devs gave for doing that was so that nodes would hear about everything
it? Yes,
faster, and
I
that
I,
and that
I
and
also
so
have
and
that
so,
part.
not necessarily like Oh, so the small miners can. I mean, that was one of the reasons, but it wasn't.
It's one of the reasons, right? I put it in the section. Yes, it's also related to the nodes, because if you are gonna, again, this is the argument, right? If you are gonna put a bunch of garbage into the Bitcoin blockchain, you put it in the safest place possible instead of in an annoying, dangerous, and not dangerous, but a way more annoying place where it becomes a bigger problem for nodes.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think mining changes one way or the other, like in terms of centralization on this particular thing. And if it does, it's so tiny as to be negligible, and like the other things would dominate it significantly. So maybe we can move on to the nodes part.
Sure. Yeah, because we're running out of time. Okay. This is not important. This is just me, because again, I've done this presentation over the years. Oh, that was out of order. Perhaps again, this is like the grow for the nodes, because every time I did this presentation, I decided to just leave the prior the prior list, and I just kept adding new list. And this was the presentation that I gave on January 31st. So I took a screenshot on January 29th with the number of reachable nodes are on there. So now we get to the nodes portion, and this seems to be the biggest area of contention for everyone. And again, just based on a bunch of our guests, and this brings in all kinds of debates with the CSAM argument as well. And remember that thing what I said that was like cringe when I said people shouldn't run a node? I didn't mean it like that, right? Like, so this is my chance.
Good time to go correct everybody. Okay, go tell them what you really meant. Okay.
So what I really meant was, okay, I respect full resilient nodes. This is the type of node. Yes, I believe every single person should run a node to validate their own transactions. They can do it as a pruned node. It works just as well. So for privacy enhancement, to verify your own transactions, yes, everyone should run one of those nodes. But my point of contention is, just because you run a node, and this is the part that I tweeted that everyone is very, very pissed at me about, where I wrote, one node does not equal one signal, because some nodes are more valuable than others. And I treat nodes as your node, and it can be your Bitcoin stash, which isn't as important as your node that signals for mining hash rate, or a node that creates lots of economic activity. Like, I do not believe all nodes are created equal. Now, when you are running your node to validate your transactions for security reasons, yes, all of those nodes are equal. But Bitcoin is not, a node democracy. And I no longer believe that nodes are a disproportionately more important part of the triangle than miners or developers. I used to think that, but I don't anymore, right? And my view is that node signaling, some nodes are a way more important signal than others. And just because you are running a node in a box, which, by the way, I should trademark that term, because as far as I know, I'm the first one that said it.
Oh, no. I've been using that for like 8 years already, Tone. Yeah. I called it that in my newsletter back in like 2017, 2018.
Shit.
Like when Nodal came out and what was it? Bitbox. Well, not Bitbox. There's been several. I've called it node in a box for a long time.
Really? I've okay. Never mind.
I could show you my newsletters from like.
No, I know. I believe you. I mean, I don't have to. I'm not gonna sit here and call you a liar. Like, you don't need to prove it to me. But I believe you. Oh man, I thought I came up with a term. too bad. I'll just stick to unconfiscatable. But so just because you are running a node in a box to validate your own transactions doesn't make you like an expert on, like, let's just say, I don't think Bitcoin is like this crazy democracy that some people make it out to be.
It's not a democracy. It never has been. Right. Yeah.
Well, some people are treating it like a democracy. So to me, it's like a node in a box that validates your own transactions are not the nodes that impress me, spreading around the world, right? The nodes that impress me spreading around the world are the listening nodes that have the full blockchain history, that are propagating, all of these transactions, that are connecting to a lot of peers, and that are actually resilient because they are not scared of any government entity for any reason. These are the nodes that actually impress me, okay? Not the cumulative number of nodes. And the more of these nodes on the system, the more resilient the system. And this scare tactic that, nodes are going to get turned off, don't run your node because now the data can be stored in that node that is continuous. Like, this is insane to me. And this kind of scare tactic would actually will likely decrease the amount of what I refer to as resilient nodes. And if they're scared to run a node right now and they're willing to fork the chain with an unknown, dangerous soft fork, again, dangerous in my opinion, if they're willing to do that over something as irrelevant as spam, what are they willing to do in the future with something that is actually relevant and a real attack on Bitcoin? So this is how I see BIP 110 reducing the amount of resilient nodes by just making people accept that, hey, if there's bad things that people think are bad things, we need to go and alter it so that all the nodes are in compliance with the government. This is, like, again, to me, this is insane.
Yeah. So we've talked about this with like the CSAM stuff and whatever, and I think there's an important point that you make. It's not very cypherpunk to be like, hey, we need to be legally compliant based on these laws that exist. And I think that's the point you're bringing up with resilient nodes, is that if you're afraid of the government because of this law, then what can we tell you? Like that's not the way, or then any government can kind of shut down Bitcoin. That part was always like a bridge too far for me. That somehow CSAM is like an existential threat to Bitcoin somehow, that it means that Bitcoin dies. I mean, I can understand sort of like the moral argument against sort of storing anything on your computer that might have that, but like from a legal perspective, if that's what's scaring you off, then it's not a very resilient node, right? Like that's, I think you put that part well. As far as like whether BIP 110 increases or decreases the number of nodes that are quote unquote resilient, I'm not sure that I'm not sure it does in either direction, right? Like the argument that you seem to be giving is that the reason people would run BIP 110 is because they're scared of the government, prosecuting them if CSAM material shows up in the Bitcoin blockchain, something like that, and that they're doing BIP 110 to fork off in that case. In that case, you're actually still left with the same number of resilient nodes. So in that case, you have more resilient nodes, in which case it's more decentralized, at least on one side of the fork versus the other. If BIP 110 succeeds, I mean, some people are doing that, but I don't see the resilient nodes like not running because 110 succeeded. I mean, maybe you could make an argument more on it being so dangerous that that it's not economical to run a resilient node or something like that. But as like I don't see it necessarily going one way or the other in that particular case. I'm trying to game this out here, like in terms of how it plays out. But yeah, I mean I don't think I've ever bought the CSAM argument like that. I get that there's a lot of people that are concerned, and that's sort of like the urgency around BIP 110, which again I don't agree with that kind of urgency. I don't think it's like that at all. But like as far as if BIP 110 succeeds, does that make the nodes more resilient or less resilient? I mean, I lean towards more, but I can't even tell whether it does more or less. Or I again, this is like so complicated and so many variables that go in that it's hard for me to say definitively, you know what, oh, Bitcoin's node resilience is going to go down in some global fashion as a result of this software. I don't think I could confidently say that. I'm not sure like how it affects the network. I mean, if it succeeds, like, you know, what does it do? Like, if your scenario of all these core developers rage quitting happens, then I don't know, maybe it like they do more soft forks based on government diktat or something. Or I mean, maybe you can make that argument. I just don't. It's hard for me to predict these scenarios with any amount of certainty, and I'm not sure if it increases or decreases, or at what magnitude. I just it just seems very kind of almost disconnected or difficult to figure out on that score. Yeah, so yeah, that's where I am on that.
All right. Well, yeah, no, I still have to make that point that if people are trying to use that as an excuse to censor ourselves, then to me that's a problem. Like, people need to stand up for Bitcoin, and this is the argument that I made in the interview with Nico on Simply Bitcoin. In that, for the last 10 years plus, like 15 years, all we kept saying was Bitcoin is neutral. Bad people are going to use Bitcoin for bad things. You know, they're going to purchase illicit products. They're going to use Bitcoin in all kinds of illicit ways. But that's not what Bitcoin was made for. That's a tiny, irrelevant percentage of the Bitcoin network and of the global network for these transactions. And now, with the CSAM argument, somehow that same reasoning is thrown out the window. All we had to do was say the exact same thing. Bad people are going to use things that they're not designed for bad things. They do. No one condemns this. No one condones this. And it's such a tiny fraction that it's irrelevant and is going to get drawn out, right? This is the same thing we said about using Bitcoin as money. And now we can't say that about Bitcoin as data storage, which Bitcoin wasn't even designed to be data storage. So it's even easier to make that argument, but yet no one is willing to make it for some reason.
Yeah, I never really bought that argument that that data storage would outprice normal monetary transactions, even at the edge. I mean, I could see a scenario where you get significant compression through some L2 technology we haven't seen yet. I don't know, maybe some combination of ARC and eCash and other stuff can compress like 1 million transactions to one on chain, in which case, like, you know, you get roughly 3,000 transactions per block right now. So you could potentially have like one transaction every 20 minutes for every person in the world, which would, I think, be enough. But I don't know. Like, this is where I suspect that, you know, financial transactions will price out spam, which is why, like, in the end, it's not that worrisome. But where, you know, I'm open to the possibility of being wrong. I just don't think there's that much evidence that permanent data storage is that valuable, where it becomes sort of like a dumping ground for all kinds of crap. permanently, even when fees are pretty expensive.
Right. And my final slide here was basically, I just saw this morning and I couldn't believe it. This is a post from Nick Szabo where he's saying that Core v30 should have been examined by like legal law firms to get it approved, which I thought was freaking insane.
Yeah, I mean, you do know Nick used to be like a law professor and stuff, right? Like he's not he's very familiar with law. So I mean, to some degree, I think he if you're talking about liability and stuff, I would defer to him at least on that score, because like the way I read it, it sounds like it's so he's trying to tell the developers you should be kind of careful with this stuff. Like you might be found legally liable, and there's no shortage of U.S. Department of Justice or the SDNY like going after certain people because they did something that they didn't like, and they throw the book at them on some kind of specious grounds. I mean, like that's how I read it, but I don't know.
I think people are commenting and not even listening to our show.
That's okay. I like this is kind of why I think it's a good time to end the series, because in a sense, like all the arguments have been made on all of that stuff, and they're at a certain point you just kind of have to let it play out, and that's I know you think that BIP 110 is like very damaging to Bitcoin in some way. I actually think it's like very healthy. I like because it's a decentralized system. Anyone can propose a soft fork at any time. We just don't know how this sort of plays out when an intolerant minority does it. All the other soft forks we've had more or less like 80-90% consensus on it.
I want to talk about that. I really want to talk about that. Mechanic completely misunderstands what happened in 2017. I mean, like he was around, but I don't think he was in the weeds of that, and he completely misunderstands it.
What does he misunderstand? What's your interpretation and what's his, and then what's wrong about it?
All right, real quick, I gotta do a bathroom break.
Okay, all right.
Where's yours?
Why don't you go do the bathroom break? I'll keep the plebs entertained, I guess. Oh boy. So yeah, we will be talking about BIP 110, whether or not it's dangerous or good for the network. I guess what he wants to bring up is whether or not the analogy to big blockers belongs on one side or the other. And that seems to be something that people, that Tone's been pushing a little bit. I think other people have been saying it also. And yeah, I mean, this happens in almost any conflict anywhere in the world. You try to make an analogy to a previous conflict. Hopefully, that your side is on the winning side, and so you make those analogies and so on. This is kind of part of human nature and what people do. But yeah, it's something that it's something that people should be more aware of, but not necessarily make analogy like that, because it kind of shortcuts all of the critical thinking that you need to do, and it's in a weird way like a trust not verify culture, because when you rely on analogies, what you're doing is you're trusting that is the analysis of the situation fits whatever previous situation happened, instead of looking at it like fresh and thinking from first principles. Analogies are like sort of a form of trusting in someone else's analysis, but in a more subtle way, because it's done through rhetoric. Oh, sorry. Anyway, we should talk about 110 being useful or not. I think you want to talk about whether or not it's a big blocker, or like I mean, so just to talk about this a little bit or set the stage, before Tone asked me to come and do the show, he told me, uh, he had talked to someone and they had told them that um, all the Knots people sounded like big blockers. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you still hold that view, right?
There's a lot of similarity. No, I'm now comparing. I'm now starting to compare them to the Ripple people equally as much as the big blockers. But yeah, we can talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was telling the audience that I think that's kind of like trust not verify mentality, because it's you're not taking the issues at from first principles. You're using an analogy to shortcut your thinking and to trust in the analysis of whoever is making that analogy. I don't think it has that much similarity. And if anything, the user activated soft fork was something that Luke pioneered, and he's doing it again, and he's in the minority again, and he's sort of pushing for something, and
I disagree. I disagree
forcing
with the
one or
minority.
the.
I actually disagree with the minority part, which I want to talk to you about. But real quick, on a total side note, going back to the mining side, I think of everything, because back in the very beginning, uh, even the core developers were considering the possibility of a block size increase, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, fairly quickly, the core developers came to the conclusion that hard forking to a bigger block was not going to work, right? Like, it didn't take that long, but they explored the idea. You agree?
Yes.
Yeah. They explored the idea. And then when the core developers came back and said, hey, hard forking to a bigger block is not a good idea, and we don't think there will ever be consensus, and technologically, it's probably not that great. And the Bcash people disagreed. And while I was learning at the time about forks, I mean, we didn't know what was going to happen with the forks. While it was kind of easy to understand the big, while it was easy to understand that hard forking was going to be hard, the technological side was the debate. And this paper by Bitfury settled it for me. I actually read this paper. It's 18 pages. This one particular part right here made all the difference for me, where they calculated that if it's just a 2 megabyte block instead of a 1 megabyte block, the propagation of that block goes from 0.15 seconds to 0.33 seconds. And even to me, as being more Bitcoin noobish at the time, I knew this is pretty bad. And even this alone could lead to more minor centralization, because even 0.15 of a second can make a difference. Okay, so there's just these little things that make it click in your head. The moment I read this paper, and when did this paper come out? It came out in where's the date on this?
2015. It says 2015 up at the
Oh, there
top.
it is. September 6th, 2015. There it is. Okay. So right here, I think I read this paper a little bit later, or like Alex from Alex Bitfury sent it to me like in early 2016. Whenever I read it, I'm pretty sure I wasn't as paying attention to the debate in 2015 as I was in 2016. So sometime in early 2016, this was sent to me, and that's when I'm like, holy shit. Okay. And there was nothing that big blockers could do, no matter how many DMs I got from Roger Ver. I was not going to be on their side. Okay. So these are just the little tiny things. Like 0.15 seconds made all the difference for me. And I knew that side was going to be wrong. So there's just a little.
Yeah, well, the irony is this paper.
Side note, I don't even have any other points.
The Tone, can you hear me? Am I on? Okay, right. I thought I froze. The irony, of course, is that we now have compact block relay, which makes all these numbers null and void. So yeah, but regardless, it was accurate at the time.
So so the way I see the okay, let me briefly say, because I want to say where the UASF of I don't believe that was in the minority, but we're going to talk about that right after. So here's my similarity, right? like, it doesn't matter to me if you're trying to make the blocks bigger or you're trying to make the blocks smaller. Attempting a fork, whether it's a soft fork or a hard fork, I believe is dangerous. And we can. These are just some of the reasons why it's dangerous. Vortex actually sent out a really good tweet explaining like 8 different reasons why the soft fork is dangerous. Especially in this particular case, where it is the minority. And Mechanic, and we're not going to get to this, right? But I have like Mechanic's videos where he talks about this, how this minority in 2017 defeated everyone. In 2017, there was
so this is your perspective first, then his perspective, so I can evaluate.
Well, I'm not going to play this because I don't think we have the time. I don't think you want to stay on.
Yeah, just summarize it for me. Yeah.
So the summary is, he actually believes that a minority used the user-activated soft fork of 2017 was done by a diehard, unwavering Bitcoin maxi minority, and they forced, the majority to switch. Now, the reality is 80 to 90% of the network were running segregated witness. There was a majority running segregated witness. There was one miner that was preventing the activation of segregated witness, Bitmain. Bitmain was preventing SegWit from activating. And the users of Bitcoin, after like 8-9 months, got very, very frustrated. And Core did not want to push the issue. They were not interested in a user-activated soft fork. But because there was this overwhelming majority that wanted SegWit at that point for Bitcoin to scale, and we can debate whether the block size increase of SegWit was good or bad. At the time, I thought it was great. Now, I'm not so sure. But the transaction malleability bug fix of SegWit was absolutely necessary. And because there was literally just one miner preventing it, it only took a minority of vocal node runners to push BIP 148, and BIP 148 never activated because BIP 141 was put in because, hey, BIP 148 may be a little dangerous. It can split the network. Let's give the miners one more chance to really activate it with BIP 141. And then when Bitmain refused to do it,
but yeah,
right, and that's where I'm going to. And when Bitmain still refused to do it with BIP 141,
BIP 91, I thought.
No, Hilliard put in BIP 91 because BIP 141 had like a 95% threshold, which Bitmain was preventing. So BIP 141 was to prevent BIP 148. And then BIP 91 came in to kind of force the issue, like, hey, let's just do it without Bitmain. And then Bitmain eventually capitulated. So Mechanic is completely wrong when he says that a minority, pushed a change onto Bitcoin. There was an overwhelming majority who wanted SegWit.
Well, all right. So I was there. We did those shows. I don't think it was an overwhelming majority. I really don't. And we saw that because there were a significant number of people that went towards Bitcoin Cash. Obviously they died off slowly, but that wasn't a small number of people that went to Bitcoin Cash, and they were a lot of meetups had this argument, right? A lot of it wasn't it wasn't 90 something percent. And to his point, and I think this is where I think I kind of agree with him, is that the user activated software definitely put in a deadline for everybody. And that made it so that if we don't do this by this date, then we're going to split the network in some way, shape, or form. And you're going to have to deal with that reality anyway. So either activate SegWit, which was a soft fork, and I'm not sure what you were saying with like a soft fork is dangerous or whatever, but that's exactly what a user-activated soft fork is. And at that time, that soft fork was SegWit. It was, we're going to activate SegWit regardless of whether you want to or not. And that gave everybody a deadline so that, BIP 91 and the New York Agreement and all that happened, and we got SegWit starting on that day. And I don't think it's so clear as, hey, there was an overwhelming majority and they just like pushed it tiny bit over the line, or it was, kind of an ambiguous situation and they gave a deadline that forced the issue. I'm not saying you're right or that he's right. I don't think it's that clear, like what happened. I don't think he's completely wrong. I don't think you're completely wrong either. I just like this is where you get to sort of write narratives afterwards. But again, we don't know what went through the minds of every single person that was on the network and so on. I suspect that like futures markets had a big part to do with it. And, the miners did the math. I wrote some articles around that time explaining how much money they would lose if they, based on sort of like the futures market amount that they were trading for and stuff like that. But it wasn't so straightforward as, hey, it was going to happen anyway. And the user activated soft fork just like, did something very minor and inconsequential. Or, hey, the user activated soft fork was the be all and end all of everything, and that nothing would have happened without it. I'm still not sure, like what pushed everything over the edge. We just know that it did, and that we got SegWit, we got, basically the New York Agreement and BIP 91 and all that to activate. Like it's hard for me to just say, oh, he's definitely wrong on this, or that you're definitely wrong on this. I'm like, again, it's like we're trying to, even if it's in the past, it's oftentimes hard to figure out exactly what happened because we don't know the motivations of everybody.
I gotta review our old videos because I'm sure I'm doing screen shares on like who's signaling for SegWit and what % of the nodes are running.
I was watching that very, very close. I wrote a bunch of articles on it, right? Like here are the people that are. I remember it wasn't just Bitmain though. I believe like F2 pool might have also not been signaling and stuff. There were like 4 mining pools that were affiliated with Bitmain that were all not signaling, but it wasn't just him. And like I found out later through Johnny Beer's book, among other things, that there was the CEO of blockchain.info, Peter Smith or whatever. He was taking meetings all over China trying to convince these miners, not to mine and stuff like that. So it wasn't just one entity. It definitely was multiple entities, and it might have been one person influencing them all or something like that. But it's still not entirely clear that what happened. And this is kind of what history is like. You like to think that with certainty exactly what happened so you don't make the same mistakes. But oftentimes, like, we just create narratives around it and we're not really sure. But yeah, I mean, this is why I like what the analogies to big blockers and this side's the big blockers. No, this side's the big blockers. It's like a very limited utility in my opinion. And like you still have to look at the arguments from first principles and decide for yourself based on that, and not, hey, this rhetorically sounds better and therefore I'm going to go with this side. It's like, nah.
Right. So we're closing out. I just have a couple of slides left. And again, I did this in a Google search for AI. Why were the core developers cautious to support the UASF of 2017? They weren't on board. And Google came back with these reasons: a risk of a permanent chain split, dangerous for users and businesses because people are confused on what's going on. There was a lack of broad consensus. I think there was more consensus than Mechanic wants to lead you to believe. But I do have to review the old videos. Maybe I may still bring on a few people that were there in the trenches during the user-activated soft fork days. Technical risks of a rushed timeline, which I don't really think was all that rushed. And the philosophy of non-coercion, Again, while some developers like Luktash Jur championed it, many core members were uncomfortable forcing nodes to abandon the longest chain rule, which is fundamental to Bitcoin security, in favor of a time-based rule, preparing to allow for a more orderly, though slower, upgrade process. And again, the one thing that they all missed was this, and Mechanic acknowledged this as the my best point of this entire presentation, is that one of the reasons why core developers were very concerned that the UASF, if it succeeds, it does create a possibility of a minority forcing a hostile change to the network. It opens up that door. And in one of his videos, Mechanic reflected that this is possible, but he doesn't see any way how he is this person driving the bus on a hostile use of the soft fork, and I believe that he is. Now, this is a tweet that I wrote as far as the user-activated soft fork goes, because Wicked wrote up an interesting post. So I don't really want to read all of this, but
a wall of text.
Yeah. So I kind of only want to read mine, but anyway.
Why don't you just read yours and then explain as you go?
All right. I'm going to try to read it fast. Newest Nazi narrative just dropped. The claim is that more people are now running BIP 110 than ever ran BIP 148. And that is alone grant its legitimacy. This is false and ignores critical context around who was running these clients and the broader sentiment. At its height, BIP 148 nodes comprised of an estimated 10 to 15% of the publicly reachable nodes, while most of the network was running SegWit-ready Bitcoin Core versions with notable economic actors like a bunch of exchanges. So there was consensus for SegWit. It's just that there wasn't consensus that ran 148. Yes, 10 to 15%.
No, because there were definitely a whole bunch of businesses that were holding it hostage and saying, you know what, up until the New York agreement, they were saying we want a block size increase, including, some of the more prominent companies in the industry. And it wasn't until the New York agreement that they said, okay, now we're on board or whatever. That I clearly remember, and it wasn't just a few businesses. It was there was nothing close to consensus before.
Right, but Jimmy, hold on. The New York agreement was let's get
BIP 91. Yeah. BIP 91 plus a 2x increase 3 months later, which ended up
right. It didn't happen. Right, that's what I'm saying. Right. So the New York agreement was let's get SegWit in, and then we hard fork to a bigger block. And like the community said, no, we're not going to hard fork to a bigger block.
Yeah, that was later. But like this narrative that there was a consensus, that I was there. I know that wasn't true. And we wouldn't have done so many shows with so many arguing. I mean, we went to these conferences. We argued with these people. It wasn't a consensus.
I'm gonna disagree with you here, right? Because we were both there, right? We weren't literally in the room for the New York agreement. When the New York agreement happened, right? It happened in some closed door room where a bunch of people agreed, hey, let's get SegWit in, and then we're gonna hard fork. And when that New York agreement came out, like the community literally said, there's not going to be a hard fork. The New York agreement failed. Like, I don't understand why you think the New York agreement succeeded.
No, the New York agreement got a lot of those businesses on board. Before that, what Wicked makes it sound like is everyone was on board with SegWit, and then it was just a coincidence that the user-activated soft fork happened on that day. It wasn't like that at all. The user-activated soft fork was always a threat. And then all these businesses were on the other side of that, saying we want a block size increase because it'll make it easier for our businesses and so on and whatever. And it wasn't a few businesses; it was a bunch of businesses. And then the New York agreement happened, which got SegWit in. Now there was a significant portion of the community that were saying, you know what, the 2x thing 3 months later, we're not bound by that because it's only those businesses that agreed and so on. But but the New York agreement is what got them to agree on SegWit, and I don't think that's
we
controversial.
remember it a little bit differently, Jimmy. I don't remember the trickiness. Like you making it sound like all those businesses were tricked into SegWit, and that's not how
that was
I
Eric Voorhees' position for a long time. Was that we had to keep their word to them, and that's why he kept 2x fork going, or right, and only abandoned it like a week before. But like it was a big deal because like again, Peter Smith got a whole bunch of miners and other. I mean, you could read the book, The Block Size Wars. It wouldn't be a war if there weren't two sides. It's not like this rewriting of history. Oh, there was always consensus, and it was only like just a few people that were on the losing side. It was not. It was a lot of people on both sides, and to make it sound like it was like a 99-1 split or something like that.
No,
it's
not
completely
like that.
rewriting history. It was definitely a significant split, and it wouldn't have been such a big deal for such a long time, and Johnny Beer wouldn't have written a long book about it unless it was a war. It had two sides.
It did have two sides, but again, a mechanic is slightly misrepresenting the like yes. Well, right now there are way more nodes, but by percentage, they're not. I don't believe that the knots is going to be by percentage. Where not knots. I don't believe BIP 110 is going to be by percentage where BIP 148 was. But in addition, the knots client will be nowhere near the percentage the SegWit client was at the time.
Yeah, I mean, like as far as what's happening with this software, like that I think I've said it over and over again on this show. I have no idea what's going to happen, but the past relitigating or changing it to fit your narrative sort of thing, that's the part where I'm like, it's not exactly how it happened. I was there, and there were two sides. It wasn't an overwhelming consensus for SegWit at the time that the UASF idea came up and that they released the client and so on. These things all interacted and they affected each other, and we know this because the date that it activated was August 1st, and that's also the day birthday of Bitcoin Cash and so on, because of all the things that happened prior to that the confluence of events that led to all of that. So I mean, ultimately what I'm saying is that analogies to 2017 aren't actually all that helpful. It's just sort of like shortcutting people through rhetoric, what they should be thinking through in the dialectic. They should be thinking for themselves through first principles instead of listening to whatever sounds good and whoever vilifies the other side better. I don't think that's the way you should make decisions on something like this. Although, I mean, I can't stop them, obviously. But like you said, not all nodes are equal. I totally believe that. I totally agree that some nodes are more important than others. I mean, to you, your node is probably the most important because that's what's going to tell you whether or not you got paid or not. But at a network level, we still aren't sure what's an important node, what's not, right? Like we have theories that it's economic nodes, it's resilient nodes, it's nodes that run a certain way, are more connected or whatever. We're still not really sure, and this is actually why I think BIP 110 is great, because we get to find out some of the answers to these questions. If you're right that it has no chance because these people aren't going to adopt it and these people aren't going to adopt it and stuff, we'll learn something. Okay, and then we'll be like, okay, that means that an intolerant minority can't necessarily push a soft fork on the rest of the network. And if it turns out that they can, that has certain implications, right? And you alluded to this earlier. And this is the uncertainty around that is actually the bad. We want to know what happens. We want to have some idea of how game theories play out, how individual actors end up playing out things. Like they're not the only ones that can do this, guys. And I'd hate to break it to you. It's a decentralized system. Anyone can propose a soft fork or user activated soft fork at any time. You can't delay this thing forever. And it might not be this particular minority next time. It might be a very different minority next time. It might be somebody you agree with next time, somebody you disagree with next time, or whatever you're with this time. You might be on the other side, is what I'm saying. And this is why I think it's actually good that we get this out of the way now. We want to learn about the system, and unfortunately, a lot of people are sort of this mindset. We want to prevent anything that might hurt things over the short term, rather than learn things over the long term. For me, I'd rather learn this so that we know how to plan things over the long term. The more certainty we have on how certain things play out, the more knowledge we have, I think the better we are off as a community, rather than sort of, oh, let's just FUD these people out of existence so it doesn't happen. And then the next time it happens, we're all surprised and there's more uncertainty, more volatility, and bigger stakes and so on. Get this out of the way now. That's my attitude.
Yeah, this is also why Mr. Hodel added BIP110 to his Twitter profile, because he wants to see them try to.
Yeah, I agree with him. I mean, like, let's see what happens, right? Like, one of the best things that came out of 2017, Tone, was that we got the Bcash hard fork, right? Because the fear, I don't know if you remember, like, we were all doing all these shows. Oh man, people are going to be so confused. There's going to be Bitcoin 1 and Bitcoin 2, and all this stuff's going to happen, and people are going to sell everything because they're going to be so confused and so on. And it turned out actually that uncertainty being removed and people recognizing that actually it's more like an airdrop and I get free coins, and the suckers lose their money, and the people that
I agree. And I actually think it's very likely that it's going to happen again, and BIP110 is going to spin off and will end up spinning off into a shitcoin, or it may not happen. Like, I have
so this is the question for me.
My opinion.
But no, this is a question for me. How do they spin off as a separate coin? Because if it's a soft fork, unless you have what Johnny called like an incompatible soft fork, right? Where
the URSF. We can discuss this possibility. The URSF, yeah.
Right. So unless there's a corresponding like incompatible soft fork, like, you'll always have that wipeout risk. So it's never really a separate chain until, like, it resolves in that way. So, like, I don't know if you can say, like I'm not even sure anyone, like, how would, like, exchanges handle this? There's so many, like, weird questions, right? Like, what if you're trading these coins, right? And then so you trade for the other coin, and in the middle of that trade, like there's a wipeout or something like that, or it happens shortly after what you would, like, how does that even get settled? Like, how do you even design these contracts at these places so that you make a futures market that makes sense? Like, there's so many weird things like that where, like, you can't necessarily say this is going to be clean or easy or settlable. Because it's not.
Jimmy, there is multiple directions this can go. Okay,
way more than multiple. Like, it's almost an infinitude of.
No, it's not infinite. It's not infinite, right? Like, again, I'm speculating, right? My speculation is that there will not be any significant mining, signaling hash rate, and they're gonna have to cancel that flag day. That, to me, that is the most likely scenario. The most likely scenario. NOTs, BIP110, will not get any significant hash power, because remember, they have their signaling right here. 0 blocks, 0 miners have signaled so far. I know it's early. They lowered the threshold to just 55%. I do believe that if they get 55% of the miners on flag day, then they're going to be successful. I do believe that if they hit this threshold, with actual mining, not like miners that are, game theory pretending like they're signaling just to get other dumb miners to mine that side and then get rewarded.
So, I mean, there are possibilities like that. I don't even know how you measure that, right?
I know.
How do you even measure that? Who's signaling for real? Who's not? Right?
I know, Jimmy. You can't. I know you can. But like, again, I have to think of. I've already been thinking about all these possibilities. People ask me questions. We're discussing all these possibilities just to just be aware of some of them, right? So yes, if there is real hash rate, if there is actually 55% of the network mining their coin on Flag Day or before Flag Day, then BIP 110 is going to activate. If BIP 110 activates, for all the reasons I have already mentioned, and they are right here in summary, I believe that a small group will decide what's going to happen in the future. Like, to me, Bitcoin becomes way more centralized. And if BIP 110 activates, rationally or irrationally, I will be, I don't want to, it's hard for me to say I will have zero interest in Bitcoin, but it will be significantly reduced, right? My confidence in Bitcoin as a decentralized token will be like 80% reduced, right? Maybe that confidence can come back over time. But the moment I see significant hash rate that I believe is actually legit and not like spoofing, right? Anyway, if I see BIP 110 succeeding, I will be out, right? To me, BIP 110 centralizes network. I'm not going to go start a shitcoin. I'm not going to go join a shitcoin. I will just move my wealth into the S&P 500 if it's not already there, right? Because of this shit. So I have other assets that I have confidence in growing in value. And if I don't trust Bitcoin's decentralization, then why the hell would I be hodling, right? It makes no sense. I would put my money where my mouth is. And why would it be in Bitcoin if I no longer trust it to be a decentralized network? Rationally or irrationally, right? I would be out. So what do I think is going to happen? I don't think they're going to get anywhere close to this mining activation threshold. So depends how close they are to this threshold. If they are, say, 20% to the threshold, I think mechanics said 10% is the point of no return. So he feels that with 10% of the network, the Flag Day on or September 1st or whatever that Flag Day is, sometime in September. I know there's mandatory signaling in August 4th. There's mandatory signaling. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but in relation to the September day. But he was saying 10% no return. I think with 10% of the hash rate going to Flag Day, they're fucked. I think they need probably closer to 30% of the hash rate on Flag Day. And then they have a chance. Then they have a chance of succeeding with 30% of the hash rate because of the dynamics of them being a soft fork. My highest probability as of right now, they will not even get 10% of the hash rate going into August. And in that scenario, do they cancel BIP 110? And if they cancel BIP 110, do they regroup and try again? Because we saw this, right? It was Bitcoin XT and Bitcoin Classic, and eventually, Bcash came from it. I think there were others, right? Do these people regroup and try again, or do they give up? Based on the rhetoric that and how they've been conditioned at this point by certain YouTube channels and certain personalities and certain deities of the code. I just named 3 people right there. I don't think they're going to give up. I think they're going to regroup and try again. So the best thing is actually them getting 15-20% of the hash rate, going for it on this one shot in September with their user-activated soft fork. And now the legacy chain, right, would have a choice going into Flag Day. Does the legacy chain trust the miners not to give them more than 10 or 20% of the hash rate, and then let that chain just die off because the legacy chain would grow faster and the chance of a reorg of the legacy chain would go down very quickly if the knots side of the soft fork does not get significant hash rate very quickly. Or do the legacy chain believers not put the fate of the legacy chain into miners not getting scared and switching over to the soft fork, which has an advantage? Do they try to put in a reverse user activated URSF, user reverse activated soft fork? This will be a competing soft fork. It is not a hard fork. The reason for the URSF is to kind of put in an embedded replay protection, because the BIP110 URSF is not going to put in replay protection. And replay protection kind of makes sure that the chains get split and there is no reorg. This is what Bcash ended up doing, and they also lowered
Let me stop you right there, because replay protection, that's not what it means. Replay protection means that you have a transaction on one chain, and that can be replayed on the other chain, right? And that if that happens, then it's often very undesirable. For example, Coinbase on the Ethereum split didn't have replay protection for the coins that they were sending out for Ethereum, so a lot of the Ethereum classic coins that Coinbase held went out to the same people without them knowing. So that's what replay protection means.
Yeah,
there's a relatively simple way to go get around that if it comes to it. Is you just have an op return in it that's 84 bytes,
right,
and into your transaction. I mean, that's one surefire way to make sure your transaction is invalid, at least on the BIP110 side. And then after that goes through, you can do that. Or you can go to a faucet, get a small number of coins from one side and include that in your transaction as part of it or something like that. And there are many different techniques to get around replay protection. What you're talking about is sort of like fork protection or wipeout protection. And I don't think that's not something that the BIP110 side is going to have any incentive to implement, because
they're not.
Yeah, because they want to overtake the other chain and wipe out all of those transactions.
Correct.
Because then they would be the Bitcoin on both chains, and it would be a single chain. So it really ends up putting the ball into the core court, and this is what Johnny and I were talking about for a significant part of the last episode.
Wait, let me. Core is not gonna. Core will not be on board. I mean, I can't speak for Core, right? Like I'm the god of Core. People in the audience like, Tone, why don't you just convince Core to run BIP110? I'm like, are you kidding me? If I didn't convince Core to run BIP110, I would have been out of Bitcoin so long ago because it wouldn't exactly be decentralized, right? So I don't think Core has any interest in a URSF. Now, some users may put in URSF, and now people like myself will have a really tough choice to make. Do I want to be on the URSF, right? I don't know. I don't have that answer yet.
Yeah. So if you get a third client, basically that implements that incompatible soft fork, so that you kind of like bounce between them. But then the core client then goes with the longest chain, so it might bounce between BIP110 and this other hypothetical URSF fork. So it gets very complicated, right? You can see how the scenarios just blow out. But one question for you, Tone. You had these like thresholds, like 10%, 20%, 30%. Where are you getting these numbers from? Because I haven't done the game theory math, and I don't know, maybe you have, but these numbers seem kind of arbitrary to me. Like, because there are certain things like in like a Nash equilibrium kind of thing where you can figure out, okay, well then this is the optimal amount of hash rate before you go. I mean, I don't know what those are, and I'm not sure anyone can, because I'm not sure we know all of the incentives that people have and so on. Like 10%, like like I don't know if that's like I'm not even sure where anybody gets these numbers. It just seems kind of arbitrary to me
Well,
that
they,
like
I know
mechanic is saying that and you're saying that. Where are we getting these numbers?
they, they may seem arbitrary. I am just using my own logic and my ability to just estimate math. It's no different than the way I play poker. I've never studied poker. I've never studied percentages of poker. But when I play poker, I'm calculating just the odds of, like, I know you can memorize the entire table of odds. What are the statistical probability of the next card coming out that you need? You can memorize that whole table, or I just intuitively have a general idea that is somewhat accurate to what that number is instead of memorizing that table. So these are the numbers that at the moment, I am referencing in my own head from just doing math and statistics, my entire career. And these are the estimates that I have. There's no science behind them. And if someone is going to do the science, I will take a look at that paper. But at the moment, that's what it is. And if I'm shown some kind of game theory math, which isn't even going to be that accurate anyway, right? It's not like the poker hand, which is also not accurate, right? Because I don't know what the other people folded, right? So I am still estimating the probability of me winning that hand based on what is likely to come out next. And even those statistics, I mean, I don't know what other people folded, right? So it's still a rough guess, even with exact probabilities. Right? Even with an exact table, right?
Yeah, and this is where it gets really tricky for me. It's not your probability of hitting certain outs. I don't think the outs are clear, right? Like it's dependent on how other people react to how other people react.
Right. So again,
once you get to a certain percentage, the math that some of the miners might have is at this threshold we flip because of this.
Right.
And you don't know what those may be. They might have their own actuarial tables or their own,
Jimmy,
things.
You have to,
and it might depend on futures markets. Like there's so many variables where it's like,
but Jimmy, a lot of our viewers don't even know what the possibilities are. And I am just running through some of the more likely, not all of the possibilities, the more likely possibilities. And I went through them in chronological order, and that's also my probabilistic order, because I think the highest probability of what happens going into September 1st is that this BIP is going to be canceled, rebranded, and tried again next year, which may be good, but may be bad. The best thing might be for them to actually go through with it. But I don't see how they're going to go through with it if 2% of miners are signaling in mid-August. Well, like, I just don't see how they're not going to cancel it. Like, do you? Do you see them going through with it if 2% of the miners out of their 55% threshold on August 15th?
Maybe. The thing about like a soft fork like that is you can afford to kind of wait. And the game theory might be okay, like as long as we get even a couple of blocks mined fairly, reasonably, then we could just sort of wait to wipe out the other chain. And this is where the expectation of wipeout eventually is enough. But again, this depends on like how people value each chain, and and you get to these like really weird scenarios where one miner decides, okay, you know what, I'm gonna be all on the main chain and not the 110 chain, and I'm going to buy up these like very very cheap 110 coins with with the main chain Bitcoin, and then I'm going to switch everything over, wipe them out, and I now just made like a profit of many thousands of Bitcoin.
Hold on. You just made an assumption that there's going to be a market for buying those other
Right.
coins.
I'm just
At
saying,
the
like, this is
moment,
a weird scenario that you could get into if there is a market, a futures market like that, right? Where
but there is no
you
market yet, and
no,
the
there
fact
isn't. But I mean, I think everyone's incentivized to go make one. And if you get a scenario like that where the miners themselves realize, okay, I can make a ton of Bitcoin for free if I do this. Like, say it's trading 100 to 1, something like that, right? Like they think most of the market thinks it's like 1% possibility that BIP 110 succeeds. So they trade 1 Bitcoin for 100 Bitcoin on BIP 110. And the way it works is that if you do a wipeout, then you lose nothing.
Okay, hold on. Can we back this up? Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. Jimmy, are you really giving serious weight to the probability that a miner would want to reorg like 100 blocks? I mean, can you imagine the value?
It doesn't have to be
crash of
100 blocks.
Bitcoin?
It only has to be like 3 or 4, right? Like, it depends. And again, this is the risk that we have with the soft fork there, and this is just one sort of like pathological scenario in a sea of them, is that you have the possibility of like actors that can profit by switching in sort of ridiculous ways. So it's not so straightforward that even at like 2%, it's like, okay, I'm going to fake being on the main chain for a long time, and then maybe even like secretly mine on top or something because there's so few blocks, but then like release them all at the same time, wipe them all out, and get the best price possible for the coins on the chain that don't wipe out. And bam, I have a whole ton of Bitcoin. I can make some serious profit from all of these suckers that manage to bet on that side, something like that. I mean, this is a pathological scenario, obviously, but it's not impossible. And
this is so strange to me, right? Like here's like a little minor realization. I am so much more confident than you that this BIP 110 soft fork is going to fail. And yet, at the same time, I am so less confident in Bitcoin having much value worth holding if this is actually contentious and BIP 110 is going to succeed. You seem to be on the opposite of both camps. You seem to be a lot more confident than me that BIP 110 has a chance of succeeding, and yet you don't seem to be concerned at all for your life savings, crashing 80, 90% in that scenario. Well, like, can you square this circle for me?
Yeah, like I said, generally, if you take out uncertainty, then the price tends to go up. I don't think it's this was what people were saying pre 2017 too, right? Is, oh, everything's going to crash because there's gonna, like, people are gonna be confused, blah blah blah. And we were saying that for months, and then it happened, and then we got some information, and it turned out actually Bitcoin did great. This is where I like resolutions to things for that reason. If it plays out a certain way, whatever way it plays out, we're going to get more information, and the more we learn about the system, the better it's going to be going forward, because you're going to have a better idea of how these things play out. Now, you might think that, like, and you said this earlier, that if 110 succeeds, you're out, right? Like you're selling all your Bitcoin, putting it in S&P.
I'll be done. I'll be done before it succeeds. Like if I even think it's going to succeed, but the concern is, again, I'm correlating price to this, right? Like the moment I think it's going to succeed, I think the market is already going to be pricing Bitcoin at like sub $10,000.
Okay, well, I mean, that's your opinion.
So
I don't think that's, especially the volume of money that's already in Bitcoin. They're not selling because of some like nerd drama around some.
Oh, this is why I don't think it's going to succeed, right? Like, again, this is the other chicken and egg. I think this thing is going to be a spectacular failure, but the earlier the failure, the lessons will not be learned, right? So, like, I would love for the BIP 110 people to learn the lesson of the Bcash people. But in order for that to happen, this thing needs to actually have legs, like what happened in 2017. And I think this time around, because there is a huge risk of wipeouts, that it's a lot more dangerous for the price of Bitcoin. So how do I? Let me rephrase my thought process here. So while the fork in 2017 seemed a lot more dangerous, as you alluded to, because of the bigger players on the other side. I think there is no money backing this at all, right? Like you and I have debated this for the last 4 months, right? It was mostly privately. It wasn't publicly. I think there's absolutely no value on BIP 110. I think that, like, yes, there are maybe a few whales, maybe a handful of whales. If defining whales as someone with 1,000 Bitcoin, I don't know. My guess out of my, like picking a number out of my ass, basically. I say there's no more than 3 people with 1,000 Bitcoin that are pro BIP 110.
I already know you're wrong.
Okay. Okay. And as far as dolphins go, people with over 100 Bitcoin, I think that number maybe I don't know, 40 people, 50 people, right? And I think like 99% of the people pushing for BIP 110 have less than 1 Bitcoin. Okay. So I don't think there, and it's not that I'm like looking down on the plebs. It's just that I don't think there is a lot of, money behind it like there was in 2017. Like in 2017, there was serious money. Like Roger Ver alone is 100,000 Bitcoin, right? Plus Bitmain. Like a team, there was serious value on that side of the chain, and serious value can, have serious influence and create serious problems. This time around, I don't believe there is serious value pushing for BIP 110. But because it's a soft fork and not a hard fork, the danger of this split is way higher than the last one for technological reasons, not for financial, money backing them reasons. Does that make sense? I mean, I could be wrong on the numbers, right? But does my view of it make sense? Let's say there is 50 people with 1,000 Bitcoin, right? It still doesn't equal Roger Ver's 100K.
Yeah, I mean, your argument is that because of the wipeout risk, that it's materially different than 2017 or something like that. I mean, you could be right. I suspect, though, that that's not that big a difference. The thing about 2017 was that, in a sense, the big blockers capitulated a little too fast. And we never got the learnings that we could have if they held on a little longer. So even like the 2x fork, if that happened, that would have given us a lot of learnings. But they kind of knew by then that they would get absolutely clobbered, and a lot of people would have lost a lot of money. So they didn't go through with it, and all those people could kind of back out of their bets and so on. But this one is, I mean, I like, the one thing I've noted about Bitcoin is that it has a deep resilience, and like people want it, right? Like there's nothing like it. And I think this is why you and I have been in this space for a long time, is that there's nothing like Bitcoin. There never has been. There isn't. There's nothing that comes even close. So even if BIP 110 succeeds, and it's as bad as you seem to think it is, I don't think there's anything that competes with it, right? If it succeeds, right? Just to be clear, if it succeeds, it means that the soft fork succeeds. There's one chain, and that it has all these rules on it. I honestly don't think it's that big a deal. Like in the end, like people make it out to be, you're disabling these opcodes, and you might be taking some people's money, and they're not going to trust it, and therefore they're going to dump all their coins or whatever. I actually don't think if it succeeds, I don't think it's that big a deal. It's about as non-eventful as like the 2x cancellation, something like that. That's my personal feeling. If it doesn't succeed, I think it's similar, right? Like if nobody minds it, and or they delay it for 2 years or something like that, I think it's still a non-event. Like in a sense, like the power of Bitcoin is so strong, and the savings value, the new asset class that it is, and in comparison to everything else that is in the market, it's just so qualitatively superior. I don't see a large number of people rage quitting. I just don't. It's that's not a reality that I like. For it to drop like 80-90%, it means like a significant percentage of people of the Bitcoin out there gets sold, right? And people stop believing in it. I still don't think there's anything close with or without BIP 110. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, sorry, you cut out for me for a minute there, and somehow
basically my point is that there's no asset that comes close, and with BIP 10 or without BIP 10, it's still mostly the same Bitcoin. I don't think it's a big deal either way, and I don't think the markets necessarily price it differently or whatever. Like there are some pathological scenarios where it really splits into two forever, but in that case, I think there's still no competition for Bitcoin, right? Like it's just there's nothing decentralized. There's nothing that lets you save money over the long term like it does. There's nothing that's digital that can be instantly transferred, that you have complete possession of, and things like that. It's just I don't see people that value it for those reasons suddenly drop it because 110 succeeded in preventing some spam from getting in or disabling some opcodes or something like that.
Yeah, no, you and I are definitely in a bit of a disagreement on that one. Wait, I never actually retweeted the thing on Twitter, and I don't know why my Twitter is not actually like.
I tweeted. I had to go to your page and click share from there in order to show it.
Yeah, but I want to go to my page. I don't see it live. I have to like click on my face in order to see the live, so I can't actually retweet it, which kind of sucks.
No. You click on your face, and then there's a share button in the lower right corner. That's what I used.
Oh, so I totally forgot to do that. So share as a post. Post this.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, that's a new feature. No, that's not how it always was.
Yeah, I didn't know how to do it until just like.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay, I'm gonna just tag you while we're still live. We're gonna wrap it up soon, though.
I think that's appropriate, and I know you're gonna have other shows, and they're probably gonna be mostly dunking on knots and how dangerous these people are and flooding people. But I just want to remind the audience here, like it's in the grand scheme of things. I don't think it's that big a deal. And I don't think the data carrier size was that big a deal either. And the unfortunate thing is that the only way you get attention on Twitter and other places is just by sort of catastrophizing everything. And I think both sides are a little bit guilty of that, right? Like CSAM will ruin this, and Tone, you're saying like it'll crash the price by 80-90% if it succeeds and so on. I don't think either of those scenarios is real. So
after it succeeds, there is a very high probability the price is going to rise. My concern is that the closer BIP 110 gets to activation day, with the possibility of it succeeding, that is the concern. That is the crash, right? The uncertainty is causing the crash, right? Now, after it succeeds, I'll fully agree with you, right? Confidence will likely come back. My confidence may not come back because I don't trust Bitcoin under, BIP 110, under BIP 110, right? Because of all of the things in that presentation. Like I'm not gonna have confidence in Bitcoin as a decentralized asset, which is what brought me to Bitcoin in the first place, right? That doesn't mean that Wall Street won't have confidence in Bitcoin. In fact, Wall Street may have more confidence in Bitcoin if Bitcoin becomes more centralized, right? That is possible, right? That is very
or you could be wrong, and core developers don't rage quit all at once.
I could.
Yeah. In which case, would you be more confident if that didn't happen?
Would I be more confident that? Yeah. Okay. All of that will raise my confidence in Bitcoin, right? Now,
because I like just my probability of them rage quitting is very, very low. Like, just because a lot of them are very, I mean, like, the thing that a lot of people don't realize is a lot of the core devs are young, right? And they didn't get into Bitcoin that early, so they don't have that much Bitcoin. And this is their livelihood. And this is like, for them to rage quit would mean that's a significant uncertainty in their lives. I think they continue. And besides, it's not that big a deal to them. I don't think.
I want to really comment on this. Tone doesn't trust Bitcoin under BIP 110, but he's 100% okay with Bitcoin Core allowing spam on the Bitcoin. Yes, right? I have a lot more confidence in Bitcoin with this irrelevant spam than I do if BIP 110 wins. I don't understand why it's so hard for people to comprehend, right? That is my view. I am not scared of this irrelevant spam on the Bitcoin blockchain. I'm not scared that it's going to turn the Bitcoin network into Ethereum. Like, I'm not scared of any of that. And I'm not scared that it centralizes Bitcoin in any way. On the flip side, I have all of these concerns. Like, sure, there will be no spam on Bitcoin, right? There's no spam on Monero, but I don't care for Monero. I've never had Monero. I have no intention of getting Monero. Imagine if there was zero spam on Monero. It is not interesting to me because I don't consider Monero decentralized. I think Monero is going to keep losing value against Bitcoin and probably gold. Like, Monero is not interesting to me with or without spam. And Bitcoin under BIP 110 will not, maybe I'll change my mind, right? But for the time being, I'm a lot more comfortable with spam on the Bitcoin blockchain than I am with BIP 110 winning. My opinion.
All right. So just to summarize your position, it is that if BIP 110 succeeds, there's a mass quit of core developers, maybe a tiny bit more minor centralization because I'm not exactly sure. And then nodes will be mostly less resilient because they will be
right, because it sets a precedent that everything needs to be checked with lawyers, right? Like, so future
or something, or that would be the main consideration for a lot of node runners. That
right,
legal
and also I think the majority of BIP 110 node runners don't know what the hell they're doing, and this would embolden them more to continue doing dumb shit that they don't know what they're doing.
What do you mean that they don't know what they're doing? Like, do they not know what BIP 110 is doing, or do they not know how to run a node, or do they not like know how Bitcoin works? What are you saying? What they don't know what they're doing? What are they doing that they don't know what's happening?
We can summarize it as, I don't think they know how Bitcoin works. And really,
and
this is why, and this is why, again, not everyone, but I think greater than 50% of people with BIP 110 in their profiles don't actually know how Bitcoin works. And this is why I believe BIP 110 will not succeed. Now, if I'm wrong, then everyone is welcome to say Tone doesn't know how Bitcoin works. And that's fine, because I will not be talking about Bitcoin going forward, because I will admit that I was wrong about how Bitcoin works. And this is why I am confident that BIP 110 will not succeed. And this is also why I am confident, as BIP 110 is gaining momentum for succeeding, that means I am wrong. But me being wrong also implies to me, and just me, that the price of Bitcoin is going to drop, because confidence in Bitcoin's decentralized network will also drop. I could also be wrong on that. It's also possible, as Bitcoin, as BIP 110 adoption is growing into September, the price of Bitcoin starts to rise. This could be because of BIP 110. This could be independent of BIP 110, just like the crash we already experienced could be enhanced by BIP 110, or BIP 110 might have had nothing to do with it, right? At the end of the day, no one really knows. I am on record as saying that the BIP 110 controversy, that I am probably not, helping to turn into more of a controversy, right? Lots of people have that opinion, right? That this show is increasing controversy over BIP 110 soft fork, right? And this could have increased the drop in Bitcoin, or it could have done nothing to the drop in Bitcoin. I'm on record saying that it definitely assisted the drop in Bitcoin. And I think as BIP 110 gets more momentum, if it gets more momentum, it will continue to facilitate the drop in the price of Bitcoin. Now, if BIP 110 succeeds, it could bring confidence into the system and the price will go up. But for me, Bitcoin will no longer be interesting the way Monero is not interesting. It's possible I'll change my mind in the future, but either way, you will not be seeing any content from me about Bitcoin. I'm not gonna be like the person who used to have a Bitcoin podcast and then started a Bitcoin Cash podcast, right? That's not gonna be me. I will admit I was wrong. I will admit I don't know how Bitcoin works. I was completely wrong on BIP 110, and it did succeed when I said it wasn't. And why would I continue doing Bitcoin content? Because I will admit I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
Well, and also you'll have sold your Bitcoin, right? Like, because you're saying if it has a chance to succeed, you would be in S&P 500 before that.
Right now, but I can still talk about Bitcoin without having any, right? I mean, Luke's coding on Bitcoin without having any, it all got hacked, right? So that part's not like stopping me, right? I'm gonna still have a YouTube channel. It just has nothing to do with Bitcoin. I can still talk about trading. I can still like the way I talk about trading the Ethereum coin. I've never held Ethereum in my life, right? I can talk about what I think the Bitcoin price will do, regardless of whether I hold it or not. But I'm just talking about content like this, content about Bitcoin, not about trade, not about a tradable asset.
Yeah, well, so the thing I appreciate is that you have some testable predictions, right? Like, but if it succeeds and the core developers don't all rage quit at once, then we know that you were wrong. But if they do, then we know that you were right. And if the price drops like 80-90%, I think we can say you were right. If it doesn't drop 80-90%, then we know that you were wrong. So that is like something that a lot of people tend not to do, especially when they're making doomish predictions. So the fact that you are putting your name behind it, and as you talked to me before the show, you want this all on the internet. You want your prediction, whether you're right or wrong, to be out there so that you can refer back to it and point to it. Whether it's in shame or in glory, you will be up to the events that happen over the next few months. I do suspect that there's more to come. There are more moves to be made. And the discussion around this stuff, especially as like if the percentages move even like 5% or something like that, the conversation is going to change every single time, right? Like if it goes from 0 to 5%, conversation is going to change. It's going to be, oh, okay, we need to start thinking about how to do wipeout protection, and is that something people are signing up for? Is that something that should be in core and all this other stuff? It increases another percent. Now you start thinking, okay, maybe we should have futures markets. Now there's a futures market, and then then there are these like pathological miner scenarios. Okay, how do we prevent those so that people aren't wiped out of all their coins? And should we even be protecting them? And like all these changes are going to cause all kinds of different conversations. So in a sense, like I respect your right to go and do other content and retire, but I suspect it's not over. And I don't think it's going to be anywhere close to over until, I don't know, at least mid-August. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate that you are sort of out there on this and like sort of saying what you think. Whether you're right or wrong is testable, so that's very useful. A lot of other people just sort of like spend all their time dunking on people on the other side as if that's all there is to life or something like that. But testable predictions are very much appreciated. So that's good. I think I have my predictions all out there, right? I don't know what's going to happen.
But your prediction is you don't know what's going to happen. You don't have any
but that Bitcoin will be okay, right? My prediction is that either way it'll be okay because there's nothing close to Bitcoin in the financial system in any way, shape, or form. So it will sort of keep chugging along, whether BIP 110 succeeds or not. So,
and I kind of agree with you. I think ultimately Bitcoin will probably be okay, but like it will probably take me years to come back because I'm not gonna. I mean, Bitcoin can be okay without me, right? Like without my commentary and without me holding a single sat, right? Like Bitcoin will be fine. I may or may not accept it for my goods or services. We'll see. I could still accept it for goods or services, and then immediately sell it for whatever I think is better. But I do want to answer a few comments. Tone, you can propose a hard fork and create a Bitcoin freedom coin. I have no interest in creating a hard fork. I already said it earlier. I don't even think I'm going to support a user reverse activated soft fork, right? I want to
put
like
it resistance or something. I forget, but yeah.
What's up?
Right. User resistance software or something. I forget. It's a software. It's an incompatible soft fork, is what.
Right. User reverse activate. URSF. User reverse soft fork. Right. URSF. Right. I'm probably not even going to support that. Right. Because that could create a possibility of me holding on to shitcoin, because then I don't know which one is going to win. I'm still going to think that if there is a URSF, I still believe the URSF would win. But if the URSF is coming into play, that's already a bad sign. That already means that BIP 110 is likely to win, because if it was going to be ignored, there wouldn't be a need for a URSF. Again, these are all like these possibilities that I'm hoping we don't need to go to. But Jimmy, you're very happy to see us go there to see how this plays out. And this is
the thing is, if a minority soft fork can kill Bitcoin, then it's going to kill it eventually anyway. I'd rather find out sooner than later. And like this attitude of, well, we got to prevent this one, but the next one might be fine or whatever, or we'll get to it when I'm 90 years old. I'd rather know now. And if Bitcoin dies as a result of an intolerant minority, then then it's not the system that I thought it was. So yeah, it's user rejected soft fork.
User rejected soft fork. Sorry, that reversed. User rejected soft fork. BIP 110 represents exactly what Bitcoin is. What Bitcoin is proof of work with the most hash rate. That is what Bitcoin is, right? It's not about ideologies of BIP 110 or the legacy chain, right? Anyone that thinks that BIP 110 has some kind of a moral authority or like an anti-spam, it doesn't. I don't think of it like that. Whichever chain has the most proof of work, that is what Bitcoin is. Jimmy, do you disagree with that?
I think I agree for the most part. I mean, but I think what this person is saying is that like BIP executing BIP 110, like trying to do a soft fork, is their right. It's not something that you can stop. I mean, you can condemn them, you can FUD them, you can tell them off on Twitter or whatever, but it's completely within their rights to try it, and anyone can. And that's part of the design of Bitcoin, is that it's a decentralized system, and you can't tell them they can't do it. Now, it's possible that they fall on their face and nobody minds anything. As Tone said, that's a real possibility. But I think the sentiment of that comment was more that, hey, it's a decentralized system. That's what this is all about, and we don't have to listen to Core because they don't want this. We could try it on our own. That's what I got out of it.
Someone is asking, what is your definition of success? Well, it depends for what. I mean, ultimate success is who has the most proof of work. That, again, to answer the prior question, that is what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is the chain with the most proof of work. Not the most blocks, the most proof of work cumulatively on chain to double spend transactions, right? That's what success is, right? So we will see if BIP 110 creates the longest chain. That is the ultimate success. But again, in my opinion, right or wrong, as BIP 110 picks up momentum, I think there will be more uncertainty in the Bitcoin network, which would lead to lower price. Now, the other comment I wanted to say is I don't understand how people keep saying that. I gotta find that comment. That well, Bitcoin was at an all-time high the moment Core released version 30, and now that it fell, 50% since then, that means version 30 was somehow bad. I reversed that argument completely. Everyone knew version 30 was going to be released. When version 30 was released, Bitcoin was at an all-time high. That tells me it has max usage, max confidence, max investment. It is at its peak, just like when the S&P is at the ultimate high. That means there is max confidence in the private sector. Companies can hire the maximum amount of people. Their stock is high. There's wealth in the system. That is a good thing. Stock market being at an all-time high is great. Bitcoin being at an all-time high is great. But the moment version 30 got released, this whole debate started. I wouldn't be doing YouTube videos if this debate hasn't started. I kind of stopped doing Bitcoin content, and we're back, right? So to me, the drop in the Bitcoin was not, well, it was kind of because of V30 was released, but not because Core somehow damaged Bitcoin's utility or went against some kind of code, right? To me, the release was perfectly fine. It is the controversy of the release that assisted in the crash in the price, not the change in, relay policy.
I don't think it had anything to do with it personally.
I mean, that's a very valid viewpoint.
Yeah, it just seems like people fit to their narrative, whatever price action happens. Vast majority of the world doesn't know about Bitcoin. Most of the volume on Bitcoin trading is happening on iBit and stuff like that. Most of those people don't know about Bitcoin. Like, they don't care about this drama. And yeah, that's my gut feeling on it. So that's my thought.
One last thing, actually. So in 2017, not to go back there, the nodes proved to be the nodes proved that they are the alpha dog of the triangle between the miners and the coders, right?
Really did it?
The UASF, right? I think the nodes proved to be the alpha dogs in the triangle. They forced the miners to capitulate. They forced economic nodes, which is businesses in the Bitcoin, to capitulate. And the core developers did not want a UASF. Oh, this was the thing I was going to show. Sorry. One more thing. We were getting there. Now that I just reminded myself, it was this part that I was starting to read that we kind of went off track. So I'm going to read this before I finish that thought. Because Core was the dominant client and the dominant dev team, and Core wrote SegWit, the UASF, the 148, the 2017 movement, was going to mandate this dev effort into the network. And while the core devs were concerned that it could set a risk of future evil soft forks, not a single dev would quit over the success of BIP 148. And the reason for that is because BIP 148 was pushing their code onto the chain. This time around, it feels like the opposite to me. The current UASF is an FU to the core developers, maintainers, whatever people want to call them, which is still the most popular and used client. It is an invalidation of their work with rollbacks of some of the features. Yes, we debated this earlier. We're not going to bring that up again. It creates an environment where no one knows who will code going forward. And the fact that Knots is 99% core code is actually giving me a bigger concern. We talked about this earlier as well. But I think it's a positive talking point for Knots to say they're 99% core. I just see it as a negative, not a positive. Because if, the core devs do leave, like I think they will, now you have new maintainers that didn't code the prior stuff. That is more concerning to me, okay? It's a concern. I just explained it why. Even Mechanic, on his last video, admitted he has no idea what happens after the 1 year temporary part of the user-activated soft fork. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. Mechanic literally said he doesn't know what happens September of 2027 because there are some of these features are temporary and they're going to try to figure it out later. This is insanity to me when it comes to code development.
Well, no, all right. So I got to explain that part because that's something that I think was originally from Greg Maxwell. And the idea is that if you are doing a soft fork and you're not sure whether or not it's good or bad, or people will pick it up or use it, the idea was to make it temporary so that you can back off of it if no one uses it. So this was particularly in reference to something I mentioned earlier, v30, the SPV. His opinion is that that was a bit of a dud, right? Like no one really uses it. And we had another feature to do simplified proofs using like entire block downloads on stuff using compact block, not compact blocks, well, neutrino, whatever the protocol is that it's called. But the idea was that if you're going to propose a soft fork, it's safer to propose it for a temporary amount of time and then extend it if it's good. So the idea is it's temporary in the sense that let's see how well this works. And if it doesn't work well, we can let it expire, right? Like if it ends up locking up lots of money for people that like have a right to their coin, but because of eliminating op if usage and in the witness field, they can't get it out and they complain about it. Let it expire. They can get their coins back after the temporary soft fork expires. But if it's good, if it's doing what it's intending to do, then you extend it for multiple years after that, or make it permanent or whatever. But that's the idea, and it's not a bad idea. I think it's actually like a reasonable way to go about soft forks, because doing soft forks is so difficult that it's putting the burden of proof on the people that are doing the soft fork to continue it, rather than having sort of like the momentum of, oh, this is now part of Bitcoin forever. It's temporary, and it's a way to make the impact not nearly as bad, right? That's that. And again, this is an idea that's been around a long time. This just happens to be the first soft fork to implement it.
So no, I know. So are we doing this all over again in a year, debating again whether it should be extended or not?
Well, this is where you need more data,
I'm
right?
not
like
debating it, but
I know, but this is where you kind of, I mean, in a sense, like doing it this way is a little more humble. It's saying we think this is what it's going to do, but we're not entirely sure. So we'll do it as a temporary soft fork, and if afterwards it turns out that we've removed features that are critical to people, or we've lock people out of their money, then let's let it expire and whatever. Or if it achieves the goals that they have, one of them which might be let's make it hostile to ordinals and inscriptions people, and they are off the network now, so there's no need to continue it. Then maybe that's the way to do it.
All right. So going back to that final point I had in 2017. It felt like the nodes were the alpha dog of the three parts of the triangle between the miners and the economic nodes that aren't really, I call them economic nodes. To me, economic nodes are people that do more than just hodl and run a node. To me, an economic node is, activity on the network. You're running a business. You're living on a Bitcoin standard. You're doing something more than simply buying and hodling. That's an economic node to me. That's how I defined it anyway. Could be, crazy definition, but that's how I separate the two. And I think this time around, I think it's important, very important, for the Bitcoin decentralized ecosystem to shut down a small minority of nodes thinking that they are now a bigger alpha dog as part of the triangle, right? I think that it's actually important for the miners this time to make a stand and say to the nodes, because it's I'm gonna go off tangent. Mechanic, for someone that runs a mining pool, he seems to be like very like telling the miners, you do what we say, you bend the knee, you don't matter. For someone that's running a mining pool, I'm actually amazed how derogatory Mechanic is in his rhetoric, talking down to the miners, that they are just there for the will of the node runners, right? And I think it's very important for the resiliency of the Bitcoin network into the future, for this particular soft fork, for the miners to make a stand and say, we are not mining the BIP 110, not because we want spam, not because we think there's more money in it, because there probably isn't, but just to say to the small minority, you don't tell us what to do. We are also part of the decentralized system, and we also have a say in the equation. And something that Mechanic tends to ignore, which amazes me. Like, if he wasn't working for a mining pool, it would make so much more sense. But he does. And maybe this is why Ocean has lost 50% of its hash rate. Maybe it's the weather in the Northeast. Maybe it's people taking a stand against BIP 110. Or maybe it's because Mechanic is calling miners useless hammers that have to do what the nodes say. So I think that's another aspect to Bitcoin's decentralization, is that miners might be the alpha dog in this equation.
Yeah, I mean that was the narrative going into 2017. It turned out they were slaves to economic incentives, at least at the scale that we were talking about. I actually don't think nodes are the alpha dog at all. I think it was the futures markets. It was the economic weight of people, and it was what you were able to sell on one side of the fork for. And so,
all right, so but there's nobody willing to go into a futures market that on BIP 110. That's why the futures market doesn't
we don't have a liquid futures market right now. We only have like offers from people like Wirdum saying, I'll do 1-for-1 with you. That's not a real futures market.
No, there's people offering, there's people offering like a third, right? There's people offering 25.
No, it has to be a liquid market, and it has to be like something that you're going to get, because you can make bets all day long, and that people like renege on bets or whatever, unless you have like third-party custody or something like that. So you need a liquid market. I think that was the turning point for everybody, was that we had a futures market on BCH versus Bitcoin. And that turned the tide significantly. And it made it very clear to the miners that they would be mining at a significant loss, and that they would be increasing the supply of something that people didn't really want. So, I mean, I still think it's at the end of the day, it's what people want that is the alpha dog, if you will. It's not nodes or miners or devs. It's what, as a collective, what the collective demand that people have of the asset itself, on one side or the other, that ultimately determines which side wins. And that depends on a lot of things, and it's up to really like a bunch of individual preferences, and that's again kind of hard to predict. But I suspect it's based on what has gotten Bitcoin to where it is. It should be predictable. It's something that it stores value well. It doesn't change like significantly over a period of time, and doesn't change its rules like crazy. That the moneyness of Bitcoin is what gives it the value. So that's I think what ultimately will make it so that one side wins or the other.
I gotta reply to a comment. Ocean is a centralized pool. Ocean helps decentralize the mining network, but Ocean is a centralized pool. You can do some things on Ocean you can't do on other pools, like have your own templates, but that is something other pools could also do. But Ocean is still a centralized pool. It's not decentralized. I mean, Ocean still has rules, and they still get to decide who can and can't mine on their pool. It's still
Well, it's decentralized in the sense that you can create your own template,
Right, but the pool itself is still.
which means, yeah. I mean, there's a center of the pool, right? So, in that sense, it's centralized. But as far as template creation, which is the important part of mining, that's entirely up to the node runner.
Apparently, there are some futures markets. I mean, I haven't seen any.
I haven't seen any that are like credible or liquid or have enough volume. If there are, then that'll give us a lot more. Oh, Predix is liquid. Well, I haven't been on there in a
Vortex
while.
is
So.
commenting. I mean, again, I haven't looked at it yet, but let's see. Let's see if a futures market develops.
Yeah, why don't you go to the website and see if you can find it?
Let's go to random websites. Why not?
There it is. Will BIP 110 activate and be enforced on Bitcoin by September 11? 14 cents. That's actually not. That's higher than I thought it would be. I thought it would be closer to like 8, but okay.
Oh wait, where did you see that? Oh, here it is. Will BIP 110 activate?
Yeah,
Let me
there
see.
it is.
Well, again, it's possible that like you and I didn't know about this, right? It's possible that a lot of people don't know what. So 14 cents. So the 14%.
It's about a 6 to 1, right? 6 or 7 to 1.
You think that's higher? That's higher than you expected?
Yeah, I'm like the people that are very sure. There are way more people really sure that BIP 110 won't succeed than there are people that are sure that BIP 110 will succeed. That at least I mean, BIP 110 supporters, my rough guesstimate of people that I've met and so on, it's like, I mean, it's like you go to any random meetup, it's roughly 50-50, but the conviction on both sides is very different.
All right, Jimmy,
The
just
conviction on the anti-BIP 110 side is way higher than the BIP 110 side.
Right. But also, as a trader, we're looking at the trend. And from the moment it launched at
40.
somehow
Okay.
48%, it has trended down. And right now, it looks like it is sitting at its almost at its lowest, right? So it's lowest.
So how liquid is this? How much volume has traded?
I think they have 100 Bitcoin. It looks like it's 100 Bitcoin.
Is that the limit, or is that how much has been? That seems oddly round for so many individual bets.
It does. Yeah, I would love to know the total liquidity here. How do we see that? Maybe someone in the comments will tell us the total liquidity.
Oh, it says liquidity, but that's like grayed out. I don't.
Oh shit. Okay. Oh, right there. Coming soon. Okay, so we don't know the liquidity.
Yeah, I would love to know the volume. Let's see, shareholders, my orders. Where's the order book? It says it's a bunch of no's at 86 cents. But where are the yeses? Can I see that somehow? Oh, if you buy no, buy yes. So 14 and a half cents and like 86 cents. Yeah, it's about 7 to 1.
Is this in sats? Like what is this number?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It does look like it's got to be sats, right?
This looks like the probability, right? So this is you're risking 0.88, right? To win 1. And this is you're risking 14 to win 1. And this is probably the amount, probably the sats amount.
Yeah, so it's not a very deep market. I mean,
so we have to add this up, right? So
yeah, I mean, I don't see any numbers above 100,000 really, or not too many anyway.
This one is high. That's $250,000.
$250,000 sats. That's what, like that's
there's
800, maybe $2,000, something like that. I don't know.
No, I think no, I think less than that, right? Like $1 million.
Yeah, a little less than 2,000. Yeah. It's not that much. I think like
700.
you would need liquidity significantly higher to really know, because like we had Reardon on the show. He said there were multiple people that wanted to bet full Bitcoin. So that's 100 million. That would blow this order book out of the water.
People want to bet full Bitcoin. They're on the
Yeah,
the
one on
legacy
one. Yeah,
side. Yeah, the
yeah,
legacy side, right? They're not going to get
yeah.
one. I mean, like to me, a
But
14%.
even at 84 cents, I don't think they can get full Bitcoin in there, because there's not
I mean,
enough people on the 15-cent
eventually
side.
they. I mean, eventually they will, right? I don't think they'll get a full Bitcoin in at such a low threshold. But again, you have more insider knowledge than me. I don't think there is a lot of value that's willing to bet, even at 14 cents. I just don't think there is a lot of economic value pushing for BIP 110. I just don't see it. Again, we don't. There is no Roger Ver with 100,000 Bitcoin pushing for BIP 110 that I know of.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe
well,
there
I
is.
mean, but
Maybe
but
there are
but
in the
this is a
background.
market, and we should watch it, just to see where it goes, because the minute a block gets mined, I bet you it goes up from 15 cents to like 20 or something like that. So like this is a good indicator of like sentiment, and who knows, we'll see. But
Yeah,
this is a very
that
good data point. I'm glad we have it.
that could be a good strategy. You buy the knots, and then the moment a
Mhm.
block gets mined, bam, that's your exit liquidity, right? Because
Mhm.
price is gonna spike.
Well, and if you have some hashing power, that's something you could do, right?
Right.
Is uh is buy up all these at 15, and then mine like 3 or 4 blocks, and then wait until it goes to 30 and sell it, and now you have some extra cash, right? Like it's where betting markets are a little weird for me, because there's always sort of weird incentives, especially on stuff like
Yeah.
this.
But also not just the futures, right? Like exchanges need to uh like prepare for potentially two coins, right? But
Yeah.
anyway, we will see how this plays out. I think it's time to wrap it up.
Yeah. Oh
Uh,
my God. We've been on for like 3 hours. Oh God.
Over
I
320.
need to go to
Been on
bed.
for 320. I've been on for 320. I haven't even eaten yet, dude. My entire health, but the health streak I was on is out the window. Like
What
this series,
happened? Are you drinking again? What are you doing?
this everything. Like drink. I'm not sleeping properly. I'm doing these shows. I'm traveling all over the place. No, this knots thing has sucked out not only all my free time, like it has completely like I'm on Twitter. Like I haven't tweeted this many. Like if you add up all the tweets from the prior 2 years, it is less than my tweets in the last month.
Yeah, I believe it. That's why I only tweet like once a day. But I don't know. Like you've always been more vulnerable to getting trapped on online through replies and stuff like that. So you seem to have been caught in that trap a little bit. Sorry, man. This it's terrible for your health if you miss your workouts or can't go to sleep and stuff
What
like that.
I don't understand what good can happen. Like why would I bring Matt Crowder on this channel? Why do you need like two talking heads arguing? Like I'm not doing this for clicks. I'm doing this podcast for two reasons. One, so I can learn something, and two, so you can learn something. Me bringing Matthew Crowder to argue with him will serve neither of these purposes.
Hmm. Well, I still think he would have been a good guest, at least at some point, just to get a contrast to maybe the last guest or whatever. But I mean, it is what it is. We did invite him at one point, and I think he said no. So
Yeah, it would have been good. I mean, like he was one of the first people we invited. It would have been better to
yeah.
have him then. That was before I had my opinion on this matter. Now it's just going to be an argument between him and I, and that makes no one would benefit from this. This is like Peter Schiff debating Safedine. It is just clickbait.
Indeed. All right. Well, this has been a very long series, and we've talked this thing probably to death at this point. But I think it's like I didn't expect it to play out this way. I really didn't. And if there was a soft fork, I thought it would be something that was a little more consensusy, and that would bring groups together, kind of like what Speedy Trial did like 4 or 5 years ago with Taproot activation. But that's not what happened, and despite the unideal circumstances, I'm happy for it.
I have one last question, and hopefully this doesn't start like a 1 hour discussion. Do you think? I mean, I think we both agree that the UASF to solve transaction malleability was important and worth it. I don't think anyone's going to argue that we needed to fix transaction malleability for multiple reasons, including ease of coding for the Lightning Network. I don't think that's debatable. Or are you going to debate it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Now, do you think that appeasing the big blockers by doing segregated witness and increasing the block size with up to 4 megabytes of vbyte, do you think that was a mistake? Because I'm starting to lean in a direction that maybe it was.
Yeah, I mean, I still haven't made up my mind on that. I mean, sometimes I think that yes, it was a mistake. Other times I think, what else would have happened? I'm not really sure it plays out exactly the same way, and so on. So, I'm still kind of not entirely convinced one way or the other. I can see arguments for both sides why it was a mistake, why it wasn't a mistake. I mean, I have views on various Taproot things and things like that. I'm still of the opinion that we gave the devs a little too much. We trusted them a little too much, especially on the UX side on some of the stuff that was supposed to come through on Taproot. Basically, very few people use the script path spends and stuff like that. And I could still be proven wrong, of course, but 4 or 5 years in, I'm not seeing too many wallets use that, other than inscriptions, ordinals, BRC20 crap. Right. So yeah, I mean, the point being that there were software choices that I think might have been mistakes. Yeah.
Right. So I think you and I both lean in a direction that Taproot or certain parts of Taproot were probably a mistake. We agree there? Okay.
I think so.
Now, do you think the block size increase of SegWit in 2017 significantly contributed to those mistakes in Taproot?
I think the bigger one was removing the witness size limit in the relay part, and that's what essentially caused the inscription thing to explode. And unfortunately, it's not seen in the UI anywhere, and it's not even configurable through the command line. It's just hard coded into policy.h, and you can, and when I asked Murch about it when he was on this show, he didn't even know about it, but he was like, yeah, that sounds right. And I was looking at the code while I was asking him. It's clearly there. SegWit v0 witness limit is I forget, some relatively small number that would have prevented all those large inscriptions and stuff. But again, in the end, I don't think it's as big a deal, because we do have a block size limit, don't we?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that is, I think, a bigger protection than I think I appreciated even back in 2017. And that's in a sense, my position on all this stuff has been, it's not that big a deal unless you catastrophize it through CSAM vectors or something like that, or that everything's going to crash because of soft fork risk or something. I still think Bitcoin's the best out there, with or without BIP 110. So I guess I'm looking at some of these comments, and they're like, hey, can you summarize your position for us, Jimmy, blah blah blah. And my ideal world has more implementations, and I think there will be. And within the next 6 to 12 months, I think you will see an implementation that's not nuts, that's not core, that's not BIP 110 activation, that's not Libre Relay, that's not Garbage Man, that's something completely different. And I think there's an appetite for that. And I think, Tone, you would be for something like that. Not necessarily signaling 110 or whatever, but something that is that gives Bitcoin development a little more resilience, and I think that would be great. And I hope that there are more, and I think there's an appetite for it, especially after this drama. Like, just given that, like, when you have two, it tends to like kind of go to the extremes a little bit, like American politics. I think there's a good middle ground to be had, and I think there will be something along those lines, and more along the lines of, let's be very conservative, and let's not try to fuck with people's money. Let's not concede everything to the network, or let's give users what they want, and really what they want is like a solid money that they can save in, that they can predict, and things like that. And that's maybe a few features here and there. I've spoken on other shows about, like, why don't we have an address index on Bitcoin Core? Like, why has that not been a thing? And it's bothered me, like, since the day I found out it didn't have it, like way back in the day. And if your audience isn't familiar, this is, you can think of the blockchain as a database, right? And if you want to do a quick lookup of a database, you create what's called an index. This row, for this value, it's in this row, something like that, so that you can do a quick lookup. And it makes it a lot faster to go look up those things. Now, wouldn't it be pretty obvious to have an address index? For this address, here are the UTXOs. Here's the entire history of this particular address, which could be very, very useful. Hasn't been in core. In fact, they rejected it many, many times. And one of the developers that you showed earlier, Jonas Schnelli, I think starting in like 0.10 or something like that, maintained his own fork of Bitcoin Core that had an address index. I would love for it to be more like that, right? So you don't have to run an Electrum server on top of your node, so that you can go look up your own addresses on your own node to see the history. And in addition, like, put a UI skin around it, like mempool that space or something like that. I really wish it was more user friendly. So I think that's ultimately the direction I think development will go as you have more implementations and so on. And I look forward to that, because I think ultimately that's going to encourage people to run nodes that are more resilient, that see the value and utility of nodes and so on. So that's my current position. Like I said, all of this is, not that big a deal in the grand scheme of things. But it does give us a lot of information about what Bitcoin is, how it's going to work. And, like Matt Odell says, stay humble, stack sats, and just watch the drama and unfold, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, well, he might have to explain which sat, depending on how this ends. But just as a like a quick end summary here. So as I started saying, I do not regret being very active for the user activated soft fork of BIP 148 of 2017. In hindsight, I wish it at this point, I'm starting to lean in a direction. I wish we didn't do a block size increase. We'd still have, addresses that start with 1. Then it moved to 3. Now it's, I forget, it's like, what was it, like the 81? That was the, anyway, I forget the standards. And as you say, Jimmy, what happened after that is we kind of started trusting core a little too much. And that brought us some of the things in Taproot. I mean, yes, they said it was going to be all this great stuff that barely made an impact, but the bad stuff really made an impact. Now, again, some of the things in Taproot were a mistake. Wish we could have a time machine, go back and not do some of that stuff. I don't believe removing the op return limit is a mistake. I hate it every time someone says they increased it by 1,300 times. No one is going to use it. with an increase of 1,300 times because it doesn't make economical sense.
That's where I disagree. I really don't think you can say that. Like, you really have no idea what applications people can come up with. People are very creative.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so well, I do
Mhm.
disagree that mistakes were
Mhm.
made, and the mistakes that were made led to removal of the op return limit, which opened up this hornet's nest that created this show, basically. I don't think removing that was a mistake. I mean, clearly the room was misread. I don't think anyone thought it was going to cause this much of a shitstorm, but it has, leading to the core maintainer being removed. I don't think anybody really saw how this is going to escalate.
I
from
think
this
she
one
was
chain.
planning it for a while, but yeah, I mean, personally, yeah.
Definitely sped things up, right? But having said all that, unless you can get a time machine and go back and actually fix these things in real time, I do not believe soft forking 2 knots to undo these problems is the right move. Like this is my main problem here. Like what's done is done. Yes, there is a lot of shit coining that took place on Bitcoin, but I don't see that increasing. I actually only see it decreasing. These ordinals and these NFTs and this other garbage, it's proving that it's useless, right? Yes, there might be some new stuff coming in, maybe, right? But also Bitcoin might actually be adopted more as a currency, and then there won't be room for that stuff either, right? So I'm not scared of this garbage on chain. I don't see a trend of this garbage on chain increasing, and I don't think that. I think this user activated soft fork is very dangerous, and there is my pinned tweet has some of the reasons why it's dangerous. I mean, just go to my pinned tweet. I just tag other people's tweets that explain why it's dangerous because I'm not going to rewrite it all and summarize it. It's just right there for you. And I think it's too dangerous to try and undo this stuff that was already done. But yeah, I admit mistakes were made. And earlier in this show, we talked about the problems with core that I agree with, right? Like I'm not a core shill. I'm actually not a fan of core, but I just don't think there's anything better. So we have core.
This is where a third
And
implementation would be very useful, right? So and I think that's the direction we're probably going to go. I think it's inevitable anyway. It's such a big project and it's such an important project, and there's so many people involved that I don't see a where it like stays sort of like a core monopoly forever anyway. So yeah, I think it's all a good thing. I mean, I'm a lot more optimistic on sort of the results of BIP 110 and the learnings that we will get from it. Um, and ultimately, I think it will be good for Bitcoin. Short term, maybe there's a little pain. I don't know, but ultimately, I think it's going to be very good for it because the more we know, the more better we can plan, and that's really all you can ask of your own money is that you have the tools and ability to plan for the future in an effective way.
All right, Jimmy, on that note, thanks so much for joining me. We are going to wrap up the series with you and I, but you are always welcome on this channel. Maybe you and I can do another show like this where you and I discuss future possibilities when the futures market is a little more robust, when there has been some signaling for the BIP, and maybe we'll be back. There may or may not be a person for us to talk to. But we will play it by ear.
Yeah. Well, so I predicted this before. We're going to have a show on September 1st, and it's going to be like a 14-hour live stream, and we're going to relive 2017 again, almost like 9 years to the day. And it's going to be.
I don't think we will.
But I mean, yeah. Oh man, there are people asking about Adam back. So.
Okay, so what's your real quick, right? I think I'm gonna have Simon Dixon on the show, and he's gonna bring on the whole Epstein thing, and I'm gonna. So I really wanted John Attack to be on the show, so people would actually believe me that I'm not a core shill because I'm not. I am actually very unhappy with the last 5 years of core, but when Simon Dixon comes on and starts talking about the Epstein stuff, I'm probably going to do my best to be objective and maybe push back on some of the conspiracy theories. But I'm also not digging into the Epstein stuff either. It's just not something that
yeah, I mean, I feel like it
but
like
Jimmy,
corrupts your soul even to look at that material or the emails that they send or
right.
anything like
So,
that. It's just
I mean, your like 2 sentences on Adam Back and the Blockstream team going to St. Thomas and then potentially the Little Island where Epstein was. You want to do a little
well, so
TLDR on that?
there's an email from Jeffrey Epstein to somebody else saying, "Hey, are you still into Bitcoin? Andy Back is on the island now." Possible.
That was to Amir
Oh, was it?
Taki. That was an email to Amir.
Oh,
It was to Amir
oh,
Taki.
okay. I didn't even know that. So there's like multiple levels here. Okay, Amir, huh? Okay.
and apparently there are other emails between Epstein and Amir Taki discussing some underage girls. So this
Oh
is
God,
not looking
I
good for Amir.
really just that stuff makes me want to throw up, man. Like that, and yeah, I mean, that apparently Andy Back might refer to Adam Back. Who knows? I like.
I'm pretty confident it refers to
Okay,
Adam Back. I mean, I just, I mean, like, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it is, but is it? But what makes this like? Yes, Adam being on. If Adam did go to the Little Island, literally Epstein Island, I mean, that's all you know. That's the only fact. The only fact you have is that he set foot on that island. You don't know anything else, right? You can't speculate that he did something with someone that was illicit. You can't speculate that. It's not an assumption that somehow Adam Back is now blackmailed and corrupt, and Adam Back has never coded a single line of code. So I think it's a bit of a stretch.
Bitcoin,
that just
Bitcoin,
because
not in
in Bitcoin.
not.
Sorry.
He's coded plenty, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. You know what I mean, right? He never contributed to Core as a coder. He was just the CEO of Blockstream that was funding Core development and coming up with new features. So yes, it's very very likely that Adam Back and the other blockchain Blockstream team set foot on that island. Adam Back was probably only there one time. I know Francesca. I've worked with Francesca when we were organizing a conference in Malta, understanding Bitcoin. And Francesca is great. She is, she was the administrator for Blockstream. She's amazing at her job. She was the one communicating because she's the administrator for Blockstream. Austin Hill looks bad in this because Austin Hill was the connector of Blockstream to Epstein through Joey Ito. I actually like Joey Ito. I watched a few of his presentations about
I know you know Joey Ito. I've never met him though. That's like, so it's hard for me to. I mean, I obviously
no, we met. I was in San Francisco, Jimmy. He was in San Francisco at Scaling Bitcoin. I was there with you.
I don't remember meeting him, but maybe I just forgot.
Oh, he was there doing it. I remember his presentation from San Francisco. And I remember us doing this podcast about the UASF. It was getting dark. We were outside. This was at Stanford University. And I was so angry at Jeff Garzik for pushing SegWit2x. I got to find that stream. I literally said, I will go out of my way. And this was so bad. I can't believe I actually said it. I said, I would go out of my way to email or find the contact of every potential drug dealer that uses Bitcoin and let him know that you're the one that fucked it up with SegWit2x. I actually said that live on air back then when we were talking about the UASF.
Yeah, it's been a minute. All right. I don't really have a take on it. I just kind of it's very like I like at least a little more evidence, but it's at the same time it's like, why would you even contact this guy, right? He's a convicted sex offender with minors and stuff like that. It's not that he necessarily knew about it. Maybe he was just introduced or whatever.
Here's the thing, right? Like, that's the other thing. That's the other thing. It's like, how many of you watching this knew that Epstein was a convicted sex offender in 2009, in 2014, right? Plus, like the FBI, like hid that information, right? Like it wasn't like in the public domain because he was being protected. We know why he was being protected. We're all assuming that he was Mossad or MI6 or probably all of them. He was probably an agent for every CIA style agency. So it wasn't that easy. Like right now, oh yeah, it's so easy to know he was a registered sex offender from 2009. But at the time, especially if you're trying to fundraise for a company, you do your due diligence later. You don't do your due diligence before like a first meeting at some coffee shop, or even if you have to fly out to a city, you do the due diligence before the money comes in. And while they did eventually reject the money coming in, they rejected it for different reasons, but it doesn't matter, right? I mean, if you have a really like a horrible reason, like child sex offending, to reject the money, and then you have a weird reason, like, hey, you guys are investing in Stellar. We don't want your money if you're going to invest in Stellar. I mean, once you reject the money because of Stellar, why are you going to continue to investigate to reject the money, right? It's kind of like the comedian Joe is like, oh, did you ever find your car keys? Yeah, but I'm still looking for them, right? Well, like once you've already rejected the money for any reason, like, hey, I don't like that guy's eyebrows, I'm not going to take his money, right? Like you don't need to then continue to investigate what else has he done to reject the money.
I mean, yeah, it's like I'm kind of in a weird place with that stuff. I don't want to look, but I can't avoid some of it, and it's like reading anything about it just like it depresses me like significantly because it's like a world that I don't really know or understand runs on this stuff.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything, man. Like the only thing I saw from Epstein is like whatever shows up
Yeah,
on Twitter. And if I wasn't back on Twitter because of this debate, I wouldn't see any
yeah.
of it, right? Like I don't watch mainstream TV. So the only thing I see from the Epstein like files is what shows up on my Twitter
Mm,
feed. That's
yeah.
it. But yeah, I'm gonna need a lot more evidence. Like I'm happy to Austin Hill looks terrible. Brian Bishop looks even worse. Amir Taki looks terrible, but who cares? Amir Taki's been out of the Bitcoin world for like a decade now. So Amir Taki is irrelevant whether he looks bad or not to the Bitcoin space. And in order for me to really look down on Blockstream over this, I'm gonna need to see more. Like I'm sorry, guys. Like there needs to be more evidence pointing to Blockstream actually being compromised or doing something bad. They didn't even take his money directly. He was investing in the MIT project that was then investing in Blockstream, and then they rejected the money because of a conflict of investment interest. So it's just it's a stretch. Like obviously Epstein had nothing to do with Bitcoin's creation, but it's a total stretch
Well,
that Epstein somehow influenced the
yeah, I don't
Bitcoin
think he
protocol in
influenced
any way.
Bitcoin's protocol. I think it's more about Adam Back on the island. That's the big thing. Anyway, regardless, I haven't made up my mind, or I haven't. I like it depresses me to have to think about that. And I'm sure it's like hard on everybody involved. Yeah, I mean, at some point, I guess the truth will come out. But yeah, I like it. It's just such a depressing topic. I really.
Right. And again, like people aren't even listening. I just said the funding was rejected. Like you can go and fact check this, right? They took the money and then they gave the money back because they rejected the funding, right? And the funding wasn't even coming directly from Epstein. The funding was coming from Joey Ito and MIT's initiative, and
Which
Epstein.
Epstein was an LP. Yeah.
Right, of which Epstein was like one of the LPs, right? So now we're talking two steps down. And
I
so,
don't think it's
like,
really.
it's a
I don't think Bitcoin is compromised, but it's that it's
right.
much more
I
the
don't
was he on the island, stuff like that. So, and Austin Hill and people
right,
like
but
that. So it's
again, even even if he was on the island, that doesn't mean that he's compromised, and it doesn't mean that he did something that was immoral or illegal. Unless there's more evidence, right? Like I hate this jumping to conclusion. There needs to be more evidence. That's all I'm saying, is that more actual evidence is needed. And no, I do not think Adam Back should resign if he didn't do anything wrong. And if more evidence doesn't come out, then he shouldn't resign. Now, if he knows he did something wrong and he resigns, then he's kind of admitting that he did something wrong. I don't think of everything I've seen so far, I do not believe it necessitates a resignation. Now, Austin Hill probably, but he's not part of it anymore,
Wasn't
right?
he CEO at one point,
Austin Hill? No, Adam was the CEO.
Adam wasn't always CEO. Hill. He took over for Austin, I thought.
Oh, you took over for Austin. I don't think Austin is with Blockchain
No, he isn't.
anymore,
but,
right?
I think at some point that did happen. Anyway, regardless, yeah, not much for me to say on that, because I don't know enough. I'll let you make your own judgment, and let's just sort of end it there. Like I said, I suspect that the drama on this is not over. And who knows? I know you're planning to retire and all that, and trying to if you can. But yeah, you might be like a Corleone, where just when you think you're out, they might pull you back in. So there you go.
Well, if the price of Bitcoin keeps going down, I may not be able to retire. We'll see.
Somebody says 67.9. Yeah, who knows? All right.
All right, Jimmy, I kept you long enough. Thank you so much. And we're still good friends. And hopefully we'll be doing another show. Hey, maybe you're right. We will be doing an 8-hour marathon on September 1st. Well, we don't know when, right? It's a block activates it, not a day. It's not a day flag. It's a block flag.
Yeah, I think that's the best estimate we have right now.
Right. It's the best estimate, right? There is also an August 4th mandatory signaling by miners. But the flag day is a block height, early September. And I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they'll have the hash rate to go through with it. But if I'm wrong, maybe we'll do a stream. But I also
the thing is, these shows will be super popular. That's what's happening. Because people will be like, "What's going to happen?"
I don't care if they're popular. Like I'm not trying to be popular. Like that's not.
Well, no. If it's popular, then that means people are asking you to do these shows, right? Like that's how it works. And it's like, and it's not just like people in our circle. It's like a lot of other people from all over the place that are going to want to know this stuff. I mean, the last time we did this, or August 1st stream in 2017, I still remember we were like at a trading desk in some New York floors because they wanted to know what was going to happen, right? Like it was like, yeah, I don't know.
Right, but here's a question for you. If we are doing a September 1st, user activated soft fork master stream, I'm going to be rooting for a very specific side. Which side you going to be rooting for, Jimmy?
No, depends. There's a lot of information to come. So
he's keeping it a secret.
This isn't like, I'm rooting for the Seattle Seahawks or the New England Patriots kind of thing. It's way far off. We don't know what's going to happen, how things are going to react, and
that was the least out of all the Super Bowls I've watched. I've been in America. Well, I'm watching football for like over 30 years, right? Of all the Super Bowls since I was a kid, this was the least interesting Super Bowl going into it, and it did not disappoint by being one of the worst games I've ever seen.
I thought the Patriots-Rams was pretty bad. And then some of the ones, at least when I was growing up, that were complete blowouts by like second quarter, those were pretty bad too. So.
Like the low expectations of the Super Bowl were met at every stage, at every level, including the Super Bowl. Freaking amazing.
All right. Well, all right. That's enough. Let's wrap it. I think we've been wrapping up for like an hour and a half. Let's finish it off.
Thanks again, and hopefully people will watch this on 3X.